Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. I'm your host, Victor Muhandiki from ILEC, International Lake Environment Committee. First, let me share with you a video message from Mr. Taizo Mikazuki, the governor of Shiga Prefecture, which established International Lake Environment Committee, ILEC, after the successful completion of the first World Lake Conference in 1984. Please share the video.
こんにちは。日本国滋賀県知事の三日月泰造です。Hello, I'm Taizo Mikazuki, Governor of Shiga Prefecture, Japan. I would like to express my gratitude to everyone at the Japanese Ministry of the Environment, each national government, and the organizers, UNEP and ILEC, for the efforts in supporting today's international webinar. Shiga is home to Lake Biwa, Japan's largest lake. The people of Shiga have lived with the lake harmoniously from ancient times. Shiga has also made various contributions to the conservation of world lakes, such as advocating and convening the World Lake Conference, establishment of ILEC, invitation to UNEP IETC, and co-convening the Third World Water Forum. Therefore, mainstreaming lakes in the global water agenda has been a long-held desire of Shiga. However, currently, the ripples of global climate change are advancing on our Lake Biwa. In Lake Biwa, decreased temperatures in the winter result in full overturn, convection between the lake's top and bottom levels of water, which supplies oxygen down to the bottom of the lake. However, full overturn has not occurred for 2 years in a row, and now there are growing areas in the lake's bottom where there is no oxygen. The conditions of lakes are mirrors of reflecting not only the lives of the people living there, but also people around the world. These mirrors reflect whether the world is sustainable. Through the mirrors of lakes, we need to confirm whether our way of life is advancing toward the achievement of the SDGs. Aligning with other regions around the world which have lakes, Shiga will promote the importance of lakes to the world to move towards the realization of a sustainable society. I hope today's webinar will facilitate momentum for mainstreaming lakes. Thank you very much. ありがとうございます。
Thank you for watching the video message. I would like to express our gratitude to United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP, for their support in organizing this webinar. Today, we have 9 speakers and many participants who have registered to this webinar from various countries around the world. Now, I would like to welcome today's moderator, Dr. Masahisa Nakamura, the Executive Director and Vice President of ILEC and Professor of Shiga University, Japan. Dr. Nakamura, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Muhandiki. Thank you very much, all of the speakers, to be on time to get started with this very important international webinar. Also, those who are listening, watching this webinar, across the continents, welcome. First of all, we have to make thank you remarks to not only to the governor of Shiga Prefecture, but the people of Shiga Prefecture who have been a bit supporter of ILEC and UNEP collaboration. Today we have many Southeast Asian country representatives and South Asian representatives, and also some of the ILEC scientific committee members contributing to this very important event. We will be undergoing transition from where we are to the mainstreaming of lakes and other Atlantic waters in the global water agenda, and this event will really be the stepping stone towards that goal. We have been very fortunate to have been collaborating as well as receiving a lot of inputs, assistance from the United Nations Environment Program. We have been also very much supported by the Japanese government. Thank you very much. Today we have the representatives from these organizations, as well as the president of this foundation, ILEC Foundation. In view of the very short time, I don't have time to introduce these speakers and those who are involved in making this webinar possible. But as we go along, you'll see who we have been able to convene for this meeting. Before going into the individual presentations and discussion toward the end, I would like to ask the Director of Science of the UNEP in Nairobi, Dr. Jian Liu, and then followed by him is our President Kazu Takemoto, to make a few short welcoming and greetings and remarks. Thank you very much. My name, by the way, is Masahisa Nakamura, as Dr. Mahandiki introduced me to. I'll be facilitating all the discussion towards the end. For the time being, let's return to the greetings from UNEP and from ILEC.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Nakamura, for the opportunity to welcome friends and colleagues from all over the world. And this is a very challenging time for everybody. Of course, the issue of lakes has never been more important than this critical period. And I do not want to list all the key functions of lakes, including its key functions on water supply, on health, on economy, the multiple ecological services and functions. Obviously, the reason that we as UNEP care about the lakes is not only because of the multiple functions of the lakes, the importance of the lakes, but also pretty much more on the problems that our lakes are suffering. If lake is a part of the integral part of our life supporting system on this earth, and now the lake is very sick. It's very sick. And in many developing countries, emerging economies in particular, there are a lot of problems. Pollution is one of the key problems. and the lake eutrophication is another one. And also the expansion of urban areas into the lake areas, which shrink lake areas, also compromise pretty much the functions of the lakes. So pretty much that would lead to unhealthy sort of drinking water supply for our communities, and that would compromise the multiple functions that I mentioned of the lake could play in supporting our sustainability. So the science has been trying to identify these problems, including what I knew from the 1990s, the Lake Biwa. Actually, as a Chinese national, we learned a lot from these experiences in the past. Of course, and these experiences should be transmitted throughout, including through the UNEP channels, to the rest of the, in particular, developing countries. And experiences and knowledge should be shared. But science should not only identify the problems, but science should also be able to provide the sort of options for solutions and right policies the government should set. And talking about the root causes of these problems, I think from the UNEP perspective, this sort of sustainable, unsustainable consumption, unsustainable production, including aquaculture in the lake area, including agriculture, intensive agriculture surrounding the lake area, including the industries surrounding the lake area in upstreams. They are more or less root causes that we are talking about today. So we need to, that's the main reason why the issue of lakes is not only the issue of lakes, it's an issue of the whole basin system, is an issue of the whole society. And that's why the lake issues should be mainstreamed into all the discussions in the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals, and in particular relates to the SDG 6 and also SDG 12. SDG 6 is bottled water, in particular drinking water, and SDG 12 is about sustainable consumption and production. So UNEP will work together with colleagues from ILEC and partners worldwide to be able to help getting the issues on the spot of the highest level of political leadership, and also to help governments to take the right decision and set the right policy about lake management for the health of human beings, but also the health of the planet. I will stop here. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Once again, welcome everybody to this panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe we follow next with President Kazu Takemoto of ILEC.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Nakamura, for your kind introduction. On behalf of the ILEC, I am very pleased to welcome you all to this webinar on mainstreaming lakes in the global water agenda. I am very much grateful to the United Nations Environment Program for co-hosting this webinar today. I would like to extend our sincere thanks to many governmental officials and experts from the Asia and African region for participating in this webinar today. ILEC has a mission to contribute to the sustainable management and the conservation of lakes and their basin around the world. In close collaboration with the members of the scientific committee, which is under the strong chairpersonship of Professor Walter Rust, we have implemented a wide range of activities such as research and human resource development to address integrated lake basin management. It is important to further develop the integrated lake basin management ILBM in addition to the integrated water resources management and integrated river basin management. It is also noted that this ILBM approach will be able to contribute to the achievement of SDGs. I would like to draw your attention to the statement, which was recently developed jointly with the UNEP. This statement is to call for all relevant international organizations to take collaborative actions to mainstream ILBM into the global water agenda through international discussions at the intergovernmental fora, such as UNEA 5 in February next year, and other forthcoming international occasions, including the World Water Forum in Senegal and 18th World Lake Conference in Mexico. This statement also highlights the role of lakes in addressing the long-term consequences of the current COVID-19. I would like to take this opportunity to seek further cooperation from international organizations and their member states in addressing ILBM once again. Before closing my remarks, I would like to share with you the 3 objectives of this webinar, namely, first, to overview our statement, secondly, to share experiences and lessons learned in policy implementation on ILBM in the Asia and the Africa regions, and thirdly, to provide a basis for further discussions on ILBM at the future international arena such as UNEA 5. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to conclude my remarks by wishing you all a fruitful webinar through your active participation. Thank you very much, and once again, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opening remarks, Dr. Takemoto. Next, we will have presentations followed by a discussion. Now, let's get started with the presentations. And I have a request to all our participants. If you have any questions during the presentations, kindly type them in the chat box and send them to us. When you send questions, kindly identify yourself, your country, and to which presenter the question is addressed. Although we do not have time for question and answer session today, all questions will be answered on the ILEC website later. Without any further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce our first presenter, Dr. Walter Rust, who is also the chairman of ILEC Scientific Committee and also Professor Emeritus, Texas State University, USA. Dr. Rust will present about mainstreaming lakes in the global water agenda. Dr. Rust, the floor is yours. Kindly share your screen.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and welcome to everybody. Join my welcome to everybody. I think it's going to be a most interesting session here, and I'm going to provide, I guess, you would call an introduction to what we're all here to talk about today. I'd like to provide some perspective, and so without, as you said, without further ado, I will get into it, assuming I know how to work this thing. Okay. I'm assuming somebody will tell me that you can see my screen. I'm going to talk about how we got here, mainstreaming lakes in the global water agenda, why we're doing it, and what brought us to this particular point. But I always like to start talks with a little bit of perspective, so people, including some statistics that most people don't appreciate. Come on, next one. I always like to start with this one because some people have said we wondered why we call the Earth, and from space it looks like perhaps we ought to call it water. And we spend billions every year to send ships to different parts of the solar system, sensors, etc., to try and find water because we believe that to be the thing required for all life as we know it. Well, that's nice. So we have a lot of water. But on the other hand, and if you can see this, what is on the right here is a gallon jug, a 3.85 liter jug, if you happen to be using metrics. And of the liquid fresh water, this component, it is equivalent to approximately 1 tablespoon from this entire bottle. That's what humanity has in regard to liquid fresh water. And when I was working at UNEP, the prediction was that 1/3 of our population currently lives on conditions of water scarcity, meaning there's not a great deal of water. There's a definition for that. And that the number was going to increase to 2/3 by 2025, which is about 5 years from now, if present water use trends continue. And the reality is that our present water use trends, if you want to call it that, have not significantly changed. So we're still facing this particular problem. And the observation that led us ultimately to, not single observation, but one observation that led us to talking about the mainstreaming lakes was the fact that our ability to develop water resources, build dams, transport water hundreds of kilometers, etc., has advanced significantly, but our ability to manage the water systems for sustainable use has lagged behind, which is a particular problem considering our global water needs and a continually growing population. Why lakes? There are all kinds of waters. There's groundwater, there's rivers, etc. One of the realities is that something that astounds me constantly when I think about it is that approximately 1% of the water on the Earth's surface is liquid fresh water. We have a lot of ice and snow and stuff, but 1% is liquid fresh water. And of that fraction, more than 90% exist in natural lakes, man-made lakes, and wetlands, what we call lentic water systems, or bodies of standing water. And they're right there. You can see them, you can dip a bucket in them, you can jump in them if you wish. So they have high resource values relative to many other water sources. They also accommodate a much greater range of beneficial water uses. Some people would say ecosystem services than other freshwater systems. These are lakes, again, we're talking about. And third, something that the former head of the UNESCO IHP program made the observation was that we need more water storage capacity, like it or not. And climate change has also made this a particularly true statement, because one of the predicted changes of the IPCC is that we're going to have changes in precipitation patterns. Some areas are going to have more water, some are going to have less. For areas that have less, we're going to have ways to store water for its use later. And for areas that have more, we're going to have floods. And we're going to have some structure to hold back this massive amount of water so that it doesn't zip downstream and cause loss of life and damage to property and so forth. Well, once again, why lakes? If you look back over time, and I don't expect you to read all this, Rio Declaration, Mar del Plata, the Dublin Conference, for those of you that are in the water field may remember some of these. The World Water Vision came out, IWRM and so forth, and even Millennium Summit, the MGDs. They're largely ignored lakes, or they only gave them very passing reference. The first time we've ever specifically seen anything identified in lakes was with the United Nations Sustainable Development Summit. And in SDG 6.6, and let me move this here, I put it in quotes because I thought it was kind of interesting. By 2020, which is rather unrealistic now, we're going to protect and restore water-related ecosystems, including mountains, forests, wetlands, rivers, aquifers, and lakes. Actually, the word lakes appears. And so it's trying to bring this to the forest. And these are the lentic water bodies we're talking about. We have natural lakes. We have man-made lakes. Many people call them reservoirs. And we have wetlands. And these are the things that contain so much of the world's fresh water. In fact, the vast majority. So needless to say, if we're going to use these particular sources for water, and we use them for many things, as were referenced earlier, drinking water supply is a big one, agriculture water, water for our livestock, power generation for dams, tourism, recreation, fisheries, etc. So many ecosystem services these things provide. Now, what makes a lake a lake? Well, there are three particular defining features. One is an integrating nature. A lake is kind of like a big pot, a mixing pot, where things come into it from all sectors. And as such, it can be sort of like a mirror of what people are doing on the land and the negative impacts of these particular activities. So an integrating nature exists. It has a long water retention time, which combined with the large volume means that degradation can take a long time to become visible. Think about an algae. I mean, algae need the same thing in rivers, but you don't typically have algal blooms. You have them in lakes because the algae have time to accumulate and become nuisance blooms. Unfortunately, that also means it takes a long time to solve them. And finally, complex dynamics. And I'm important to say here, nonlinear responses. What we put in to a lake doesn't necessarily indicate what we get out of the lake. And I like to show this. The integrating nature, everything comes together in a lake. You can't treat part of a lake. Long retention time means that the problems take a long time to become visible. They remain a long time, and finding solutions also takes a long time. And third, complex response dynamics. Everything affects everything else in water. And this has some management implications. One is that issues are largely inseparable in terms of the integrating nature. The changes are gradual and mostly invisible because, frankly, they often occur so slowly we don't notice them, or we get used to them, and then they get worse, and we start noticing them. And finally, because of the complex dynamics, it's often unpredictable and uncontrollable, the things that will happen in a lake. And in fact, these are some of the things. Many of these things don't occur in other kinds of water bodies, and I was particularly intrigued with some of these eutrophication pictures. I've never seen algal growth like this, and I hope I never do. All right, so we were talking about ILBM earlier, and I just wanted to point out this is the definition of ILBM that ILEC has prepared. And I want to just read it for you quickly. It's an approach for achieving sustainable management of lakes and reservoirs through gradual, continuous, holistic improvement of basin governance. The governance is a big key here, including sustained efforts for integrating institutions, policies, participation of stakeholders, science and knowledge, technology possibilities, and funding prospects. And many of you, I'm sure, are aware of the what we call the ILBM Pagoda, which integrated lake basin management ends up being the umbrella under which lakes within a lake basin can be managed. And we call these 6 elements that I just talked about previously, we're used to calling them pillars. You might call them elements, whatever you want. But these are all governance elements, and it is differences in the strengths and capabilities and capabilities of these particular elements that usually are the reasons that we have problems and take so long to solve them in regard to lakes. Okay, now we get into mainstreaming. This has been a fair amount of time in coming. Started, I remember, in a colloquium a while back that we had, which we talked about lakes and their importance. And the group as a whole ultimately agreed in various forms that we need to mainstream lakes into the global water systems. And ILEC and UNEP have worked together with the goal of mainstreaming lakes, particularly to elevate the global and national recognition and understanding of these unique features of lakes that I just mentioned and their implications scientifically and management. They make them very difficult to manage in many cases. And the goal of mainstreaming lakes is to develop a global scale platform to develop management plans and activities for Atlantic water systems, lakes, natural and artificial, and wetlands, etc., at the national level. We can mainstream lakes globally and talk about them, but obviously what's going to take place is going to be at the national level. And some of the mainstreaming statements, I think, or at least I hope everybody has gotten a copy of it, but I'm just picking some out of here that makes some sense for us to go into. That lakes receive stresses from throughout their basin and even beyond, with long-term transport of airborne pollutants, for example, and virtually all the sectors of the economy. I don't know too many economic activities that can exist without supplies of water. And lakes are where much of the water is. So those are major management challenges. And also, water needs, freshwater needs particularly, are a major component for achieving many of the SDG goals. and I'm not going to go all through them again, other than point out number 6 is there. And all the rest also have directly or indirectly a need for adequate supplies of fresh water in order to achieve them. But we are lacking a comprehensive management framework for lakes, in spite of all these meetings and all these conferences, et cetera, we've gone to. And that's become a missing link in the global water agenda. That's why we're here. Ironically, it's also a weak link in IWRM and integrated river basin management, because they do not adequately consider the special characteristics of lakes in putting many of the activities together. That's why we are here. So ILEC and UNEP, to go back to our earlier meetings, plus a number of UN agencies and international organizations and NGOs, have expressed support for mainstreaming lakes into the national environmental policy frameworks. And we are actually continuing to get inputs into the mainstreaming statement from the organizations to strengthen it. And the work we've done is also consistent with what has become known as the Build Back Better concept, meaning we're trying to refresh and get things back to better condition, more resilient than they were before we started. And obviously, we're going to be looking toward that kind of a concept toward our post-COVID-19, 19 era. National mainstreaming actions, this is another key message, can benefit from ILBM lessons learned in different regions, Asia, India, Africa. And indeed, that's a major purpose of this particular webinar, is to hear you guys and what you have done with ILBM, because it's going to help me, among other things, later when we start doing the same things in Latin America in a big way. So I'm anxious to hear what the experiences have been. And they have, as I said, we've put in ILBM, or we've tried to apply ILBM in countries, and the challenges and the results have varied between the countries, but all cases encompass this gradual learning process that assesses the state of the lake basin governance again, and how to strengthen these governance pillars or elements over the long term. So what policy actions, some major policy actions that are included in the mainstream statement, is that we have to promote global level actions to mainstream lakes as key freshwater components, not just something that might fit under an umbrella of another management approach or not. And particularly in national strategic policies and programs, because I said mainstreaming lakes on a global scale means that we're drawing attention to them globally, but it's going to be via natural actions. National action, sorry. We also have a policy need to develop a collaborative interacting global framework to help achieve item 1, among other things, for cross-fertilization, which is again a purpose of this particular webinar, and to share experiences, lessons learned, etc., so we can replicate successful lake basin management programs at the national level in other places. And finally, we wanted to develop a collaborative platform for adopting ILBM principles at the national level to improve the governance of lakes gradually, incrementally, and sustainably. The governance of lakes and their basins and their ecosystem services, associated ecosystem services, not of course, not to replace IWRM, IRBM, but to fuse, if you will, ILBM within these concepts, because it will make the whole notion of how to manage lakes much more complete within those particular management structures. And of course, ILBM has its own set of principles that are very useful for the unique features of lakes. And having said that, now we are going to, that's very brief. I mean, I could just realize I could give a course on many of the things we talked about here. I had 15 minutes. Anyway, so this is to give you a little bit of background and move forward with a little bit of context. And now we're going to move into the ILBM experiences at the national level. And I will be listening with great interest to see what experience you've had throughout Asia and Africa on this thing. And with that, I thank you. And I look forward to the rest of this particular meeting.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rust, for your excellent presentation. Now I would like to invite our second presenter, Mr. Seiji Tsutsui, the Director of Water Environment Division, Environment Management Bureau, Ministry of Environment, Japan. Mr. Tsutsui will present about Water Environment Administration of Lakes in Japan. Mr. Tsutsui, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Victor Mahadiki. My name is Seiji Tsutsui, Director of Environment, Water Environment Division, Ministry of Environment, Japan. I'd like to start my, I'd like to start my presentation. And today I will explain outline of the Water Environment Administration of Lakes in Japan. Yes, this slide shows the content of today's presentation. The current status of lake quality in Japan and development of water environmental administration of for lakes in Japan. Lake Act in Japan, response to new issue concerning lake in Japan, and Act for the Lake View Act, and present measures Japanese lake and future direction. This slide shows the important lake. So all of you know, well, you know, so approximately 90% of surface water on Earth is lake, and lake water is a water resource for drinking, household, industry, or agricultural use. And lake is important for fishery and also flood control. This slide shows a keyword for the information of ILBM. So I will explain this point in Japan's water environmental administration. So we will move on. I will move on the outline of the water environment administration in Japan for lakes in Japan. Yes, this is current status of the lake water quality in Japan. This slide shows the ratio of the water body which meeting the environmental quality standard from the 1974 to 2018. The ratio meeting water quality environmental quality standard has improved in rivers, but not so improved in lakes, include seas because of their enclosed natures. As you can see in this brown line, so lakes, the ratio of the water body meeting the standard in lakes are very low. This slide shows the brief history of the lake environmental administration in Japan. In 1917, so Water Pollution Control Act was established in Japan, and a uniform reference standard all over Japan was introduced. And also the more stringent reference standard by prefecture government in many water bodies in the by their bylaws. But water pollution is in enclosed water bodies are still remained, and also eutrophication in lake issue was also emerged. So as you can see here, so in 1982, environmental quality standard for lake nitrogen and phosphorus was introduced, and a uniform reference standard for lake nitrogen and phosphorus are also introduced in 1985. And on top of that, 1984 Lake Act was established, and I will briefly explain the outline of this Lake Act. And the Lake Act also revised 2005, and then 2015, so Act for the Conservation and Restoration of Lake Biwa, special law for the restoration of Lake Biwa was established. Did as I mentioned, details of this law will be explained later. So this slide shows the water quality conservation policy for Japanese lakes. The target is environmental quality standard. Yes, this is regulated by basic environmental law. The national government set the water quality standard, and then the measures for the industrial water and domestic water was, is taken by Water Pollution Control Act and other related act. And in Water Pollution Control Act, so regulate the establishment of the effluent standard, which covered all over Japan, the uniform effluent standard, and more stringent effluent standard by prefecture government can be introduced. And regulation for private company is also regulated in this act, and to measure the water quality effluent and the logging or the data or blah blah blah. And this is water enforcement of Water Pollution Act was basically so local government overseeing the activity of the industrial sectors, and also so private company taking the action to invest pollution control facility in their factory or the workplace, and also they have to develop human capacity. And measure for the domestic wastewater is not only by Water Pollution Act, but basically construction storage was covered by the Storage Act, and installation of the Jokaso individual household wastewater treatment system, not both black and gray water. This is regulated Jokaso Act, and this act also regulate national subsidy for the installation of the construction of these facilities. And also lake water compensation, so we have the special law for lakes, Lake Act. Based on the Lake Act, so we will develop the water quality conservation plan for each designated lake. Yeah, I will explain later. This slide shows the lake basin configuration. As you well know, so both point and non-point pollutant and nutrient, such as nitrogen or phosphorus, load from various sources flowing into the lakes. They cause organic pollution, both organic pollution and artificial eutrophication of the lake in short time. So this slide explains a special measure for the conservating lake water quality based on the Lake Act. So this is a brief outline of the Lake Act in Japan. Yes, national government formulate a policy, basic conservation policy for lake water quality. This is for all lake. And based on the law, local government can request the cabinet to designate the lake, which is very difficult to meet the environmental quality standard. Yes, so for total, 11 lakes was designated, including the Lake Biwa in Shiga Prefecture, and Lake Biwa is the biggest lake in Japan, and Kasumigaura is the second biggest lake in Japan now. So, and based on this law, so local government, prefecture government formulate lake water quality conservation plan for each designated lake. The content is shown as this slide. So, such as pollution load regulation and implementation of infrastructure construction, such as storage system, or regulation of small-scale animal husbandry and agriculture, or guidance or as a agent and regulated facilities, and promotion of research and development and technology. And this is and designation of the conservation of protected area around lakes, and designation for no point runoff countermeasure area. These two was added in 2005 revision of the Lake Act. And if necessary, so prefecture government can introduce the regulation of total pollution load control. Yes, this is a location of the designated lake. As you can see, the 11 lakes were designated. And now, so I'd like to move on the emerging issues are concerning lake in Japan. So response to new issue concerning lake in Japan. As you can see, so as I mentioned, pollution load flowing lakes were declining by many countermeasures to reduce the pollution load. But a new challenge in the ecosystem have emerged, such as overgrowth of the aquatic plant and the reduction of native fish and shellfish. Yeah, so I would like to see such emerging issue by case of Lake Biwa. Lake Biwa is, as I mentioned, the Japan's largest lake in Japan, and the lake water is 14 millions of people's water resource of the Japan's second largest metropolis, Kyoto, Osaka, Kobe metropolitan areas. Yes, this slide shows the trend of COD in Lake Biwa. As you can see, that this graph, so pollution load flowing in COD pollution load flowing into the Lake Biwa is decreasing, falling, but COD level is almost same, sideways. So this figure shows the difficulty of the restoring the water quality of the lake, which once it was once polluted. So as you can see, next slide. So yeah, one of the new challenges is IAS, invasive alien species. Yes, so this shows so many foreign invasive fish, bluegill or largemouth bass eliminated from the Lake Biwa. Yeah, so local government do the very big effort to reduce this IS. Next is removal of invasive alien species plant. Yes, this also figure shows local government effort to reduce this kind of the IAS. So national government also supported by the support to the local government activity by subsidizing or financing. And removal of aquatic plant, not only IAS removal aquatic plant growth is one of the emerging issue in Lake Biwa. Because of the fish catch is reducing, so that the activity activity in the lake is reduced. Human activity in lake, especially fishing, catching the shellfish in Lake Biwa. That is one of the causes. Overgrowth of the aquatic plant. So this slide shows a special law concerning conservation and restoration Lake Biwa. So national government formulate the basic policy for the conservation and restoration for the Lake Beaver. And local government. Basically, the Lake Beaver is all areas belonging the Shiga Prefecture. Shiga Prefecture. So Shiga Prefecture will set cumulative plan for the based on the law, and major by taken by both national and local government, as you can see here. Of course, national government has technical support and of course financial support. And national government leading the coordination between the national ministry and local government, as you can, as I mentioned. So water resource of water from the Lake Beaver is water resource for the 14 million people, not only Shiga Prefecture, downstream prefectures such as Osaka and Kyoto and Hyogo, Kobe City, and based on this law, so collaboration on the party or stakeholder was also supported based on by law. So domestic lake conservation and future direction in Japan. So I would like to point out 3 points. First is implementation of the lake basin water quality environment management, management of basic data for concerning the regarding the pollution load and the water quality, and an integrated approach for the efficient regulation and public work construction, such as domestic water measures and enforcement of measure for the non-point pollution. Second point is target setting based on the characteristic of each lake. So we need a bespoke plan, tailor-made plan for each lake. And of course, we need to introduce easy to understand indicators such as transparency. And the third point is, and of course, we need improvement of lakeside management. Of course, important to protect the ecosystem and the lake. So this is very important. Lakeside environment improvement and preservation, and improvement of lakeside environment, very important. And third point is promotion of all stakeholders. Continuous engagement of between local governments and managing lake and the stakeholder is very important. So I like to end. I like to close my presentation. So I explained Water Pollution Control Act and Lake Beaver Act, Lake Act. So based on these laws, so in Japanese law, so this point from 1 to 6 responsibility of the national local government, and philosophy, policy, plan, and measures, coordination between party concerned, and implementation of research or development of science and technology, and reporting the measures taken or financial support, financial initiative of the national government was regulated this framework. This is almost fitting the keywords of the implementation of the integrated lake basin management. This is about all of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tsutsui, for your excellent presentation. Now I would like to welcome our third presenter, Ms. Lakshmi Dewanti, the Senior Advisor to the Minister of Environment and Forestry, and also Vice President of UNEA 5, Ministry of Environment and Forestry, Indonesia. Ms. Dewanti will present about sustainable lake management in Indonesia. Ms. Dewanti, the floor is yours.
So, unmute.
Kindly unmute your microphone. Okay.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. First of all, thank you for this opportunity. Excellencies, representative of the UN Environment, Excellency, representative of other UN agencies, Excellencies, representative of the government of Asian and African countries, Honorable Governors of Shiga Prefecture, Mr. Taizo Mikazuki, Honorable President of International Lake Environment Committee Foundation, Mr. Kazu Takemoto, distinguished delegates, representatives of universities, research institutions, and all other participants of this meeting. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good afternoon here in Jakarta to all of you. First of all, let us praise God the Almighty for His blessing us to attend this international webinar. Even though we have to meet virtually due to the COVID-19 pandemic, let me extend my appreciations to ILEC and UN Environment for this kind invitations and arrangement of this important webinar, despite the difficult situations. Let me also convey a regard from the Minister of Environment and Forestry of Republic of Indonesia. It is indeed a great honor and privilege for me to join this meeting, as we realize that this world needs our collaboration due to a number of challenges to unite our effort facing degradations of our environment, especially our beautiful lake. Distinguished participant delegates, ladies and gentlemen, let me start with share you in Indonesian overview. As you all know that Indonesia is the largest archipelago in the world, consists of 5 major islands and about 30 smaller groups of islands. The figure for total number island around 17,500. The land area is generally covered by thick tropical rainforests. Many rivers flow throughout the country, and a number of islands are dotted with volcanic lakes. Estimated more than 840 major lakes and 735 small lakes spread inland Indonesia accommodate 500 cubic kilometers of water, or 72% of the total Indonesian surface water. One of the Indonesian lakes is the Lake Matara in Sulawesi, which is the 8th deepest lake in the world. So you can see how important lakes for Indonesia. In terms of the lake management, we select 15 plus 15 lakes as our priority lakes. Like in many other countries, lakes in Indonesia have numerous purposes related to human life, such as for drinking water, agriculture, fisheries, industry, transportations, and energy. 8 of our 15 priority lakes have total capacity 2,160 megawatt of electricity. Indeed, it's another purpose of lake that we need to maintain. Lake also serve important elements to balance ecosystem, to control the flood, drought, and climate change, and habitat of biodiversity, as well as advantages for ecotourism, education, and research. Indonesia is a country that has the 4th largest number of freshwater species in the world, almost around 1,183 species. As a result of increased population, intensified use of land and surface water and other human pressures, our lakes are being threatened. Be aware that more than 60% of catchment area of our priority lakes is agriculture area, which is susceptible to land erosion and water pollution. We also aware our challenges on aquaculture in the lake. 3 of our priority lakes are in high sedimentation, while 3 others are facing high water pollution and eutrophication. We concern that this condition influence our local and national socio-economic. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, again, this backdrop of background, the government of Indonesia has taken several actions to cope with challenges. Let me highlight here what we have done so far at the national and local levels. First, we formulate and design integrated lake management plan of each priority lakes. As I mentioned, we have 15 plus 15 lakes, and integrate it in local and national development plan. Second, we implement integrated programs, among others, spatial planning, development planning, forest and land rehabilitation, water quality management, biodiversity conservation, waste management, sustainable agriculture, and fisheries, and transfer for better livelihood. One of the programs is focused on forest and land rehabilitations and civil engineering at the lake catchment area. Let me take this as an example. From 2015 to 2019, we have rehabilitated 1,244,000 hectares from seedling to planting, including community and village nursery. It is also including application of transfers of livelihood models with integrated agroforestry for lake conservation and community well-being. We developed this model in Lake Maninjau in West Sumatra and in Lake Batur in province of Bali, or beautiful Bali Islands. Third, we actively involved in the global forum and lake management. Our involvement are mainly for sharing of and gain more knowledge and understanding experiences and lessons learned on the lake management and best practices. Enhancing global concern and pursuing global action on lake conservation and rehabilitation. And we also have numbers of bilateral cooperation with countries that has advanced knowledge and experiences on sustainable lake management based on mutual understanding. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, concerning this pandemic situation and realizing the urgency of lake conservation and rehabilitation, this is the time for us to give more attention on sustainable lake management. As we all know, learn from the message of the World Environmental Day this year, 2020, it is time for nature. Nature-based solution of lakes ecosystem can continue to provide their life-supporting ecosystem services to humanity and to maintain environmental integrity. It is no doubt that collaborations and coherence among relevant stakeholders should be strengthened and to coping with the emerging challenges of lake management. It is my humble expectations and hopes that the government of the Republic of Indonesia may contribute to pursuing collaborative global action. Hereby, we call for action, among others, to prioritize lake conservation and rehabilitation and mainstream it in local, national, and international development programs and agenda. To enhance community engagement through awareness, education, and participation in lake protection restoration, and wise use of lakes ecosystem. Third, we call action for enhancing research and innovation for sustainable lake management and to develop international network and collaboration of sustainable lake management, as well as strengthen and synergizing the effort among UN agenda and inter-UN bodies. Distinguished delegates and ladies and gentlemen, in this meeting, I hope that we can reinvigorate and reignite the zeal and passion we have for this issue. Sustainable lake management is something that we cannot avoid. Our support for the lake conservation and rehabilitation is imperative for the future of our ecosystems, our people, and for the destiny of the next generation. Finally, let us pray for the Almighty that the COVID-19 pandemic will end soon, so we could work and continue our good cooperation in normal way and without any worries. Wish you all the best. Stay healthy and stay happy. Keep the spirit high for the sustainable lake management in the world. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jawati, for your excellent presentation. Our fourth presenter is Ms. Amelita Ortiz, the BMP Assistant Director, who presents on behalf of Mr. Ricardo Calderon, the Assistant Secretary for Climate Change and concurrent BMP Director, Department of Environment and Natural Resources, Biodiversity Management Bureau, the Philippines. Ms. Ortiz will present about lake basin management initiatives in the Philippines. Ms. Ortiz, the floor is yours.
Okay, greetings, everyone. I am Amelita Ortiz, the Assistant Director of the Biodiversity Management Bureau of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources of the Philippines. I will be presenting on behalf of our Assistant Secretary and Director of DNRBM, Ricardo Calderon. The DNRBMB is the primary government agency in the Philippines, mandated to protect the country's biological diversity and properly manage and conserve these important resources, including habitats and natural ecosystems such as wetlands, with freshwater lakes as one of its forms. Before I proceed, let me first thank the organizers, ILEC and UNEP, for giving us this opportunity to show the lakes and lake management in the Philippines, with its diverse management strategies and intricacies. My presentation will cover the policies and frameworks that guide the management of Philippine lakes and wetlands in general. I will also show you some maps and statistics on Philippine lakes, approaches being used related to integrated lake basin management, and the different management schemes for the lakes in the country, with specific examples will likewise be discussed. I will also tackle on some issues that we have encountered, and then the strategies and efforts we have been doing to address such. First, let me emphasize that at present, we have no national policy that specifically deals with wetlands, more so on lakes, although there are a lot of policies with provisions on wetlands conservation and sustainable use. Some of these laws and regulations focus on specific aspects and types of wetlands, such as on water resources, freshwater biodiversity, management as protected area, as tourism areas, and the like. Some examples of these policies are shown on the screen. Lake management in the country also adheres to international commitments, such as the Ramsar Convention on Wetlands Strategic Plan, the Sendai Framework on Disaster Risk Reduction, the Paris Agreement, the Convention on Biodiversity Aichi Targets, and the UN Sustainable Development Goals. At the national level, Philippine Development Plan, the Philippine Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan, the National Climate Change Action Plan, National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Plan. All this has generic provisions on wetland management, to include freshwater ecosystems such as lakes. In 2016, the first ever Atlas of Philippine Wetlands was published by the DNR BMB, wherein 221 lakes were recorded. Currently, the figures are being updated, resulting to about 254 lakes recorded and found to be scattered over the country's 200,000 hectare surface area. It is about 0.07% of the total land area of the country. The following slides are just some of the major lakes in the country, scattered to the three major island groups, Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. The largest in Luzon is the Laguna de Bai, which is about 92,000 hectares. Also present are the biologically rich protected lakes of Taal and Nauhan. In the Visayas, most popular among the lake ecotourism sites are the twin lakes of Negros Oriental, the Balinsa-Sayao and the Nao Lakes, which are within Balinsa-Sayao Twin Lakes Natural Park. Other lakes within protected areas in the island, and also known as the Lake Danao, are in Leyte and Cebu. In the southern part of the Philippines, in Mindanao, are three of the largest lakes in the country, Lakes Lanao, Mainit, and Buluan. Lake Lanao is considered one of the ancient lakes of the world. Lakes in the Philippines have provided many ecosystem functions, including as a major source of the country's fisheries. Atlantic waters have been home to rich biodiversity and many endemic species. However, a number of these are also threatened aquatic species. For example, studies have shown that Lake Lanao, the country's second largest lake, has lost more than 50% of its 20 endemic fish species over the last 20 years. Most lakes also serve as catchment basins, flood retention areas, source of water for irrigation and domestic uses, and for water power generation, while others are known for their scenic value and sometimes used for cultural and religious practices. The concept of integrated lake basin management as applied in the Philippines is not anymore new, as some of its aspects are, in a way, similar to the idea behind existing approaches used in natural resource management and conservation, such as Integrated Water Resources Management, or the IWRM, Integrated Coastal Management, or the ICM, Integrated Ecosystems and Management, IEM, Integrated River Basin Management, or the Integrated Watershed Management, the Ridge to Reef or Highland to Ocean, ecosystem-based approach, among others. Specific initiatives of the DENR related to these approaches are characterization and vulnerability assessment of critical watersheds, some of which include lakes within, development and implementation of basin-wide integrated river basin master plans for 20 major river basins in the country, inventory and mapping of wetlands with emphasis on connectivity of ecosystems, and development of plans for the management of wetlands critical to biodiversity, especially those outside of protected areas. Meanwhile, ILBM is already being applied by the Laguna Lake Development Authority, an attached agency of the DENR. And ILBM by the LLDA gives emphasis not only on the connectivity and integration of the 5 pillars of lake governance as shown in the slide. There were also initiatives on ILBM training in the Philippines by ILEC in collaboration with the Laguna Lake Development Authority, DENR, and with the Save Lake Lanao movement. The country implements the following management models when it comes to lakes. The lakes which are part of the National Integrated Protected Area System, those which are governed by a mandated development authority or management body, the lakes which are locally managed by the local government unit and declared as a local conservation area. There are lakes which are considered critical for the survival of globally important species and declared as a critical habitat, and lakes which are internationally recognized for its global significance and included in an international network of sites. The succeeding slides give examples of these management schemes. Under the NIPAS, or the National Integrated Protected Area System, the whole area is managed by a Protected Area Management Board, headed by the DENR, and membership is multi-sectoral. These are just examples of lakes within protected areas, and popular among these are the Taal Lake, which is within the Taal Volcano Protected Landscape, the Danao Lake, the twin lakes of Balin sa Sayao, and Lake Lanao, rather. Shown in the screen is the Taal Volcano Protected Landscape, one of the major tourism destinations in the country, owing to its lake ecosystems and its scenic yet dangerous character. It is managed by a protected area management composed of 258 members, which are from 243 local government units, 5 other government agencies, 3 non-government organizations, 1 academe, 1 private sector, and 4 district representatives. The protected area has 2 lakes, the Taal Lake, which is believed to be a big crater, and the Yellow Lake, which is a smaller crater inside the volcano island. The Taal Lake, home to many endemic species, including the only freshwater sardine and only freshwater snake in the world. Another protected area managed by a Protected Area Management Board is the Buhi Wildlife Sanctuary, a recently declared protected area which features the habitat of the world's smallest commercial fish, the sinarapan or tabios. The sanctuary includes 5 lakes, including Lake Buhi and 4 smaller lakes, where the sinarapan had been translocated. So far, there is only 1 lake basin authority, the Laguna Lake Development Authority, which was created in 1969 through a special law, the Republic Act 4850. Under LLDA's jurisdiction is the Laguna Lake, or more commonly known as the Laguna de Bai, as well as all lakes within the Laguna Bai region. The Lake Mainit in East Danao, on the other hand, has the Lake Development Alliance as the management body created through a memorandum of agreement among its key players, including 2 provincial governments, 8 municipalities, and 6 national government agencies. This consortium is led by the local government and oversees the management of the key biodiversity area, which also serves as a basin for the adjacent watershed from the mountain of Hilong-Hilong. Another form of local government administration for lakes is the declaration of local conservation area through an ordinance of the concerned local government unit. One example is the Lake Pinamaloy in Don Carlos, Bukidnon, which is the main source of potable water and an ecotourism attraction in the area. The creation of the ordinance Local Conservation Area is in coordination with the DENR Centro Don Carlos and focuses on regulating fishing, ecotourism, and related activities in the lake. Many other lakes in the country, not within the NIPAS, are locally managed. Another example is the Lake Manguao in Palawan, which is locally conserved to safeguard globally significant species, such as the endemic gobis in the lake. The Malasi Lakes in the northern Luzon are meanwhile managed as part of the Malasi Tree Park and Wildlife Sanctuary, which is declared as a critical habitat for Philippine ducks and other important water birds. As a critical habitat, its management council is guided by the provisions of the country's premier law on wildlife resources, the Wildlife Act or Republic Act 1947. An internationally recognized wetland, the Nauhan Lake, is within the Nauhan Lake National Park. It was designated as a wetland of international importance, or Ramsar site, in 1999, and an East Asian Australasian Flyway Network site, specifically for tufted ducks. Being a member of this international network of sites, it becomes a source of information and recipient of technical guidance and international guidelines on wise use of wetlands and habitat management, among others. Lake management in the country had been and is continually being confronted with a lot of challenges. Some of the common issues on the management of Philippine lakes are the following. Transboundary management. It is when coverage transcends administrative boundaries, Political jurisdiction sometimes limit the implementation of measures that would be beneficial to both parts. The lack of management plan. Most lakes in the country are used for ecotourism purposes. However, only a handful has a well-crafted ecotourism management plan, and hence, safeguarding of the existing resources and ensuring visitor safety may not be the priority of management. Of the 254 lakes on record, only 10% have wetland management plans, with 8 of them within national parks. Another challenge is the lenticlotic ecosystems dynamics. The unique features and processes of a lentic ecosystem, such as its integrative nature as a catchment, inflows from tributaries, the long retention time of whatever flows and inputs it catches, and its often unpredictable and uncontrollable dynamics with its inlets and outlets. For some lakes, their tributaries are not within the protected area or do not share common management unit within the lake. This then becomes a challenge for identification and management of pollution sources and environmental flows. Next is the insufficient information on biodiversity and ecosystem services. Due to the complexity and dual nature of most lakes, having aspects of terrestrial and aquatic components, most have not yet been completely assessed in terms of the biodiversity ecosystem services. Hence, without the proper baseline information to allow informed and science-based decisions, there are instances where introduction of foreign species was consented to by the dependent local community for socio-economic purposes, without taking into consideration the ecological consequences. Weak stakeholder participation in management for a common use natural resources. It is the tragedy of the commons that can be the outcome for publicly owned resources. These may also be true for some lakes where proper water sanitation is not practiced. Resource extraction is exploited to the limits of its carrying capacity, and where utilization is without regard as to whether or not the ecosystem could provide indirect use and benefits aside from its direct provisioning use. Among the many strategies to address the challenges enumerated, the following are seen as of major importance. First, lake management and conservation in the country needs to be harmonized through institutionalization of a national policy and program on wetlands conservation and wise use. While proposed national policies specific to wetland conservation had been drafted, these are still pending for approval as a law. The Bureau, together with partner agencies and other organizations, continue to lobby for the approval of these policies, both at the executive and legislative branches of the government. Second, the DNR with LLDA, the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources of the Department of Agriculture, and partners from the academe are conducting continuous capacity building on ILBM for key players in lake management, including conduct of regular summits, congress, and freshwater symposia, where there can be sharing of best practices and learning experiences, as well as relevant researches. Efforts have been made to integrate awareness, especially on the uniqueness of the lake basin and its many values, in the overall communication, education, and the public awareness programs of these concerned agencies. Third, strengthening of lake management is being conducted through more comprehensive monitoring and assessment of lakes and the resources within, as basis for the establishment of additional local conservation areas or as national parks, critical habitats, and or for international recognition of its values. The DNR is also active building networks and strengthening partnerships for wetlands and lake management and conservation. In relation to this, the DNR BMB have been implementing a convergence initiative with the Department of Agriculture, specifically its Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, on matters related to conservation of aquatic resources and habitats. Private sector involvement is also motivated through private-public partnership on conservation projects. Meanwhile, stakeholder participation and engagement is also being encouraged through volunteerism activities and capacitating them in citizen science assessments and monitoring. Finally, Let me conclude that although integrated lake basin management in the country seems to be somewhat scattered with its many differing schemes and governing policies, given that we have somehow started gaining political support and increasing awareness, the Philippine government is on its way to making progress and is paving the way for a clearer direction for Philippine lakes. We can then, as a government, hope to join the organizers in this webinar in supporting the global initiative towards mainstreaming of lakes in the global water agenda. Thank you and good day all.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ortiz, for your excellent presentation. Now let's hear from our fifth presenter, who is Ms. Manju Pandey, the Joint Secretary, Environment, Forest and Climate Change, India. Ms. Pandey will present about Wetland Conservation Program in India. Ms. Pandey, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, I'll be presenting today the Wetland Conservation Program in the country. And I'm Manju Pandey, Joint Secretary. I work in the Ministry of Environment and Forests of the Government of India. And we make the policy for the entire country from the ministry. Now, as you know, India is a federal structure. Now, in this, we have about 28 states and 9 union territories. There is a central government which is in Delhi, and there are state governments. Now, there are various subjects which are divided. Either, the subjects like external affairs, defense are being looked after by the Government of India, the central government, and there are many subjects like water, which is looked after by the state governments. So water in India is a state subject. The central ministry, the central government is normally, it prepares the policy, it prepares the rules, which kind of govern and give direction to the water management in all the states. So that's that is just to give you a brief preview about how we work here. Now, in the wetlands management program, what we have from the center is, our basic work, is to develop an inventory, set up an information and decision support system for the various states. We have to develop the policy, the guidelines, the rules. We have whatever the degraded ecosystems are prioritized by the state, we kind of look after them, we frame guidelines for them. And we also organize capacity development programs for the various wetland managers across the country. And we look after the Ramsar Convention and strengthen the implementation of the international commitments. Now, I'll be, in my presentation, I have just divided it like, I'll initially talk about the wetlands profile, how many wetlands, how do we do it? Then we talk about the regulatory framework, what is our policy, what are the rules and guidelines? Then the various programs which we have on wetland conservation, and what is the way forward for us. Now, as far as the wetland inventory is concerned, we have a National Wetland Atlas where, we have used the geospatial database, and because any kind of wetland planning would only start if we first know how many wetlands, where are they, the lat longs, etc. So this initiative was taken, and a National Wetland Atlas has been prepared in the year 2011. We are in the process of preparing the change atlas now to see what are the changes which have taken place. Now, in this atlas, we have mapped wetlands up to 2.25 hectares. They have been digitally mapped and are there in the atlas. This is available in the public domain. We have given it to all the states to use it and use it for ground truthing. So the lat long of all the wetlands which are there in their states are available to the state governments. Looking at them, they go the ground truth it and make their local inventory for the wetlands. Now, if you look at the profile, we have about 757,000 wetlands which are more than 2.25 hectares, and they cover an area of about 15.26 million hectares. Out of these wetlands, the natural inland wetlands are about 45%. Coastal natural wetlands are about 25%. Then the inland wetlands, which are man-made, are 27%, and coastal human-made wetlands are about 3%. These are the details of the number of wetlands we have. Then we are, since we are one of the contracting parties, we implement the Ramsar Convention here. We have about 39 Ramsar sites in the country, and that's the total number of the area which is covered under the Ramsar sites. We've, 2 more are getting added, I think, in a couple of days. So that's the Ramsar. Now, we had 3 sites which were there in the Montreux record, which were, due to changes which happened in their ecological character. Now, one of them is Keladev National Park, which went into the Montreux record in 1990, and another 2, Chilika and Loktak, in 93. Now, of the 3, Chilika has been removed from the Montreux record in 2001. The system, ecosystem has been restored. And the process for taking out the other 2 is on its way. We are working on it. The documentation is complete, and we'll be submitting it soon to the Ramsar Secretariat. The updation of the Ramsar site information sheet, half of them is complete, and we are again working on towards that. Now, let's come to the policy part of it, the regulatory framework, which is done from the ministry. We had wetlands conservation and management rules in 2010. They have recently been modified, and fresh rules have been notified in 2017. Now, the 2017 rules, as I told you, it's ours is a federal structure and water is a state subject. So what the 2017 rules have done is, each state has made a state wetland authority. Now, the state wetland authority, the composition of the state wetland authority is given in the rules, because it was felt that development of, if we are talking of, rejuvenation of a lake or conservation of a lake, it doesn't only involve the environment department. So it is kind of a coordination of a lot of departments. So we have seen to it that the state wetland authorities, have members from fisheries, agriculture, irrigation, tourism, biodiversity. All departments are members of this, and it is headed by the chief minister of that state. So they have regular meetings based on the atlas which has been shared by them. They prepare the inventory of wetlands of their state. When I say wetlands, they include lakes also. And then they prioritize the degraded wetlands and they work on them. Now, these rules which were made, we have also prepared guidelines to help the states to implement the rules. How exactly to interpret the rules, what is to be done, how it is to be done. That guideline has been made by the Government of India, and it has been circulated to all the states. Now, another major program which the Government of India has done recently is, we have a separate ministry now of Jal Shakti. Now, Jal Shakti is it's a Hindi word. Jal means water, and Shakti is might, or the power of water. So just 2 years back, a separate ministry has been made to look after the water resources, because India is home to 18% of the global human population and also about 15% of the global livestock population. However, it has only 2% of the global landmass and just 4% of the global freshwater resources. So obviously, with the growing population and the expanding economic activities, there is increasingly demand for water. And so keeping that in view, Government of India has decided that, it is time that water is brought into the mainstream thing, and we have a separate ministry now for it, wherein the water stress districts across the country have been identified, and special measures are being taken for restoration of all the traditional water bodies, the small ponds which were there in villages. All those are getting restored. Recently, a program, as you know, India is a monsoon country, and we have 3-4 months of rainfall. So a special program was started, Catch the Rain. To it's a part of the rainwater harvesting program. So all this work has been taken up to see that the ponds and small wetlands which were there, the traditional water bodies, are again conserved in the small villages. And for the first time, you would have heard of the river Ganga. Now, River Ganga is, a department has been created for conserving and seeing to it that the water, the pollution levels go down and the water becomes clear. Now, it's a major step has been taken by the department which is looking after that. All the wetlands which are there, in the Ganga basin, they have taken them up separately for rejuvenation. So the wetlands on 10 kilometers of both sides of the river have been identified. And for the first time, an integrated approach has been taken when the river is not being looked after as just a river. The wetlands which are on both the sides, which form part of the hydrology, have also been identified. And this program is now being initiated for the other rivers of the country also. Now, this is the program which we run from the Government of India side, which is the National Plan of Conservation of Aquatic Ecosystems, which includes the wetlands and lakes, wherein the state governments, the state wetland authorities, they prioritize their wetlands which are in need for support, in need for fund, in need for, expert intervention, and they send it to the Government of India, wherein, we give them support, which is, from the Government of India. Also, it's a kind of shared project between the central government and the state government. And these are the various activities which are undertaken under this program: bioremediation, desilting, lakefront development, fisheries, weed control. I won't go into the details, the general activities which are undertaken. Now, recently, in the last 2-3 years, we have taken up a special project on rejuvenating wetlands, which we call the 4-pronged approach. Now, in this, what we did in phase 1 was we have identified about 130 wetlands across the country. Each state was asked to identify, the important wetlands of its state, and we made a list of 130 wetlands. And we have followed this 4-pronged strategy, wherein, first, we made brief documents for all the wetlands, now which basically gives the baseline data about a particular wetland, extent of the wetland, what is its zone of influence, what is the key biodiversity, what are the ecosystem services it provides, etc. So we got brief documents prepared. The next concept which we introduced, which we have done in India for the first time, is preparation of health cards for all these wetlands. Now, these health cards are basically a monitoring mechanism to find out, whether the management which you are doing for the wetland is effective or not, whether it is falling under A, B, C, D, what is the health of the wetland and what we can do to rectify it. Then we developed a concept of wetland mitras. Mitras is a Hindi word which means friends, which translates into friends of wetland. This was done basically, to enable local and public participation, where we got volunteers for all these wetlands, and formally we have taken them into the system, and they work, all the stakeholders, the matters are discussed with them, and their inputs are taken for the conservation of these wetlands. And finally, preparation of integrated management plans. Now, the integrated management plan is prepared based on what was the health of the wetland, what was the problem which was found there, what are the threats to the wetland, and it's kind of a integrated plan which we have done for all these wetlands. Now, the indicators which we use to, we have taken, to determine the wetland health, how much area is converted to non-wetland use? What is the level of encroachment in a particular? So we've given a score to that. Then whether the hydrological regimes have been altered or not. How many are the total number of inlets? How many of them are choked compared to the total number of inlets? How many outlets? How many are choked? What is the BOD? What should be the BOD? What is the BOD? Correct, when it has been taken. Similarly, biodiversity, what is the percentage of area which is covered by invasive microphytes? What was the count? What a bird count? What is it today? And as far as governance is concerned, whether the wetland has been properly mapped or not, whether it is notified or not, whether the wetland has a plan or not. Based on these, we gave scores, and we have given A to D. Each wetland was given a wetland health score. Similarly, in the brief documents which we made, we identified the threats to these wetlands. What has been the physical regime change? Is there, what is the level of salinity? What is how much sedimentation is there? Whether water is getting extracted from it? What is the mineral level? Whether there are invasive species, whether there are pollutants in it? All these things were done to find out the threats to the wetland. Based on that, this is the quadrant which shows of the 130 wetlands, there are some wetlands which we found there are no threats and the health is very good. It comes in the A. Those we kept them as blue. So those wetlands were identified. In these wetlands, we don't have to do much intervention. We just have to keep monitoring them to see to it that they work the way they are working. Then the green ones were the ones where the health was fine, but we found that there were some threats to it. So they were identified and they were informed that these are the threats which you have to manage to look after this wetland. The brown one, where the threats are not there, but there is a problem with the health. And then we had the red quadrant, which came out, the health is also D or E, and there are a lot of threats identified. So of the 130 wetlands which we studied, we had about 32 wetlands which fell in the red quadrant. And these were then shared with the respective state governments. And we have kind of supported them in preparing integrated management plans for these wetlands which have come out in the red, which are targeted and focused based on what are the threats received, what we can, corrective measures we can do to see to it that the health of the wetland gets restored. So this is the map, and these are the 130 wetlands which we took. As you can see, there are some in blue. We've given them grades A+ to E. The red ones are E. So this is what we shared with all the state governments. Now that was the phase 1, and we realized that in the phase 2 we have now taken up 1,000 wetlands this year. Unfortunately, due to the lockdown and the pandemic, the work has kind of slowed down because we are not able to visit all these wetlands now. But even during the pandemic, with the help of our knowledge partners, we have worked out wetland health cards for almost about 500 wetlands already, and work is on for working it out for the next 1,000 wetlands. And then the idea is to develop integrated management plans for all these wetlands, keeping in view the actual threats which are facing them and keeping in view what is ailing their health. So this is another program which we've been doing here. Now, we are also, we have a lot of actually centers which are, if you look at the country, our wetlands also, we have below the Himalayas, there are high altitude wetlands, we have a long coastline. So there are a lot of coastal wetlands which require a different kind of intervention. The glacial wetlands require a different kind of intervention. There are a lot of biodiversity important things, and our space application center which helps us in working on these. So we are now planning to work on a national center for wetlands, which takes input from all these and looks at it at a national scale, and could also become a kind of a training center for all wetland managers. And eventually, we are still working on it. If we could even provide help on the making of inventory and other management interactions to the other countries of South Asia. So the way forward for us would be, we want to strengthen the implementation of the convention, Ramsar Convention, enhance regional cooperation. We are working on designating more wetlands as Ramsar sites. And in the last 1 year, in fact, we've added about 15 more Ramsar sites. And the major thing the change which we have done in the last 2-3 years is we are moving towards preparation of integrated management plans for all the wetlands. So that is about the basic what we are doing in India. I can't go into details of, like I saw the other presentations about about particular wetlands as such, because I've just given you the broad framework of the wetland conservation program which we follow in the country. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pandey, for your excellent presentation. Now I would like to welcome our next presenter, Dr. Zati Sharif from the National Hydraulic Research Institute of Malaysia, NALIM, who presents on behalf of Dr. Salma Zakaria, the Chairperson, Academy of Science Malaysia Water Committee. Dr. Zati will present about the role of Integrated Lake Basin Management, ILBM, in Malaysia's water sector transformation agenda. Dr. Zati, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Mohandiki. First of all, I would like to thank the organizing committee, namely ILEC and UNEP, for inviting us to participate and contribute in this webinar. I'm Zati. I'm from the National Hydraulic Research Institute of Malaysia, an agency under the Ministry of Environment and Water. So these are the title of my presentations: Integrated Lake Basin Management Initiative towards transforming the Malaysian water sector. The content of my presentation covers about important values and major challenges facing Malaysian lakes, the initiative that Malaysians have carried out on ILBM, and finally I will conclude the ILBM connection with the water sector transformation agenda. The first studies on lakes in Malaysia actually started way back in 2004. The work by Nahrim together with the Academy of Science Malaysia. So basically in that study, we have identified 90 major lakes in the country, and more than 60% of these lakes were identified as eutrophic. And these water bodies are actually functioning as water supply, hydropower, and flood mitigation. Starting this year, we already started another work on inventory and classifying other lakes in Malaysia. In fact, we have collected more than 1,500 inland water bodies informations and data from various agencies covering the abundant storage, off-river storage reservoir, as well as detention ponds. And now we are classifying these water bodies at least with a size of more than 1 hectare. So we have altogether about 430 lakes. And the lakes that we classify and include in the recent work includes all water bodies that are basically less studied in Malaysia, especially located in the mountains, the one in the limestone areas, as well as in the urban areas. In terms of values, the most important functions ecosystem services on lakes in Malaysia is for water supply. We have about 62 reservoirs were created specifically to contribute 98% of the total national water use. And we have many states in the country that have identified various ponds, ex-mining pond, as alternative source of water supply, especially during the drought periods. We have about 10 reservoirs that are specifically built for irrigation purposes. And we have about 16 reservoirs contributing 5% of the national electricity demand in Malaysia. And we have 16 large reservoirs that are being managed by the Drainage and Irrigation Department of Malaysia to reduce the flooding risk. And more than 1,500 ponds are being managed by local authorities as a flood detention system. Other important values are fishing and aquaculture. Large and deep reservoirs like Kenyai and Batang Air is currently used for freshwater aquaculture. Few other reservoirs are also important spot fishing sites. And we have natural habitat like Boro and Bukit Merah, which is a habitat to the endemic species like the arowana. And the lakes in the urban area are actually important site for the community in the urban areas. For example, like Putrajaya is actually a famous lake for recreational, and we have many lake authorities that are actually converting ex-mining pond into lake garden. And then we also have older lakes, such as the Dayang Bunting, that support community and cultural values. Basically, these are the major challenges facing Malaysian lakes. We have deteriorations of lakes due to eutrophications, sedimentations, and pollutions from point source as well as non-point sources. Unplanned or unsustainable catchment development is still the most pervasive issue facing Malaysian lakes. We have fragmentation of governance mechanism between states and federals. There is no ILBM-based management plan for majority of the lakes in the country, and most lakes do not have a central management authority that extend throughout the whole lake basins. So the first initiative, the first policy document that that Malaysian have produced is the strategic plan for sustainable lake and reservoir development and management. This strategic plan was completed in 2009 and had been endorsed and approved in the National Water Resource Council in 2012. The policy statement basically stated that the adoption of ILBM or Integrated Lake Basin Management Approach is used to sustain, restore, and protect lakes and reservoirs in the country. So these are the 8 strategies identified in the strategic plan. Basically, a top-down approach focusing on empowering the lead ministry, establishing a central management committee at the federal level as well as the state level, and identifying a center to collect data on lake resources as well as lake research, which was mandated to NAHRIM. So in 2009 and 10, we started the Lake Brief Development Progress. Until today, we have 4 series covering 38 lakes. Last year, we started another 12 lakes throughout the countries. These are some of the photos where we conduct the stakeholder consultations with the relevant lake operators and managers. Another important initiative is the development of a blueprint for lake R&D, which was completed in 2014. Basically, these blueprints provide distributed focus and special focus, identifying research area much needed on lakes in Malaysia, prioritizing lakes that need ILBM plan. So the idea of this blueprint was is actually for Malaysia to conduct integrated research covering these 7 clusters of and to develop a conservation and development plan. Another important initiative is the development of National Lake Water Quality Criteria and Standard, which was completed in 2015 and then endorsed in 2017. Basically, this standard is the standard that is used specifically for lake with the aim to monitor the water quality in relation to parameters such as parameters that contributes to eutrophication as well as sedimentations. NAHRIM has also completed developing a guideline for developing lake basin management plan, which is step-by-step guides to 8 lake managers and lake operators on how to develop a management plan. Basically, the idea from the blueprint, we conduct integrated research, and we use the earlier informations on the Lake Brief to develop the ILBM plan. So the National Lake Water Quality Standard is the standard that we monitor the water quality to come up with the present conditions of the lakes, and then to identify the objective and action program. And these are to be implemented by the in consultations with the lake managers and operators, so that improvements in terms of governance can be undertaken by them. So far, under the 11 Malaysian plan, we have completed or in the midst of completing 7 ILBM plan. The first 3 plan was completed in 2018, covering Sembrong, Batak Air, and Durian Tunggal. This is a case of hyper-eutrophic systems. We have eutrophic systems and mesotrophic. And now we are working on 4 ILBM progress, which are more complicated than the first 3. Okay, this is an example, a brief extract of the ILBM plan for Sembrong Lake, a very hyper-eutrophic system, lake that is being used for water supply, serious incidents of algae bloom are actually affecting the water treatment plant, because the treatment plant is actually taking water directly from the lake. So when we do a study, we realized that this lake basin for Sembrong is actually divided into 2 districts, and we found that massive, extensive farming and modern agriculture are located in the further upstream in the Klang district. And so all this nitrogen and phosphorus are actually flowing into the river and into the lake in another district, namely the Batu Pahat. So this ILBM plan was carried out with various experts from different disciplines. So what we did, we identified various measures, technical measures like in different zones to tackle the point source as well as non-point sources problem. So in terms of governance, we also identify the need to create a one-stop center at the Bakash, or basically the state water regulatory authority, to do as a point to integrate the implementations of the action plan between the 2 districts. The ILBM plan for the Batang Air Reservoir is a case where we have mesotrophic lake. Basically, the water quality is still good. The problem is more localized into cage cultures and floating houses. So basically, the recommendation is also specifically looking into development planning of the lake basin, creating a buffer zone, and identify one dedicated institution to manage the catchment. Now we are working on 2 large reservoirs. In fact, the 2 oldest reservoirs in Malaysia. We have Bukit Merah Lake, which was created in 1906. It is more than 100 years old. Bukit Merah is actually, the lake basin is actually situated into 3 districts. The large lake is situated in Korean, while the large catchment area are situated in Larut Matang and Selama. So we have a lot of massive of agricultural development activities in these districts, and all these point sources and non-point source pollutions are actually going into another district, namely the Korean. Similarly, we observe in the Cenderawsih Reservoir, hydropower reservoir, where we have the lake basin is divided into 2 districts. We have the dam hydropower structure in the Kuala Kangsar, but the larger catchment area is actually located in the Hulu Perak district. So even though the larger part of the catchment is still being intact, so we have a lot of developments being along the rivers, and these may cause nitrogen and phosphorus as well as sediments or pollutions going into the lakes. Because of the complexity of these 2 lakes, we found that these 2 lakes have multiple functions. So our focus has been trying to tackle the management and the governance issues first. For example, for Bukit Merah, the lake is actually functions to supply water for the Korean irrigation scheme, covering 24,000 hectares. The water is also used for domestic supply. The lake is an important site for flood mitigations. We also have the Bukit Merah Lake Tower Resort as a tourism site, and the lake is also a sanctuary to the endemic arowana species. So these multiple ecosystem services need to be studied in details before we decide whatever management measures. Similarly, for Cenderawsih, we found that the ecosystem services mainly the hydropower generations at the downstream side, and while in the middle and upstream side we have the tourism development. We have the impact, even we have the geopark and World Heritage sites in one of the in Lenggong areas. The lake is also a popular site for sport fishing, and the lake is also used for flood mitigations. So what we did, we have multiple stakeholder consultations with various agencies in various districts. So in our first recommendation is to look into the buffer zone in terms of maintenance as well as management measures. And one of the issues that we identify in these lakes in Vera is due to because we don't have a state water management authority or state water regulatory authority for Vera. So we are trying to identify the best agencies that have enough sufficient resources in terms of budget and human resources to actually manage the whole lake basin for these 2 lakes. Basically, these are where ILBM is actually located within the IWRM picture. So what I'm trying to say here, there is a connection between the ILBM and other IWRM plan in Malaysia. So from the lake scales, we are developing the ILBM plan for various lakes, either located within the river basins or located scattered outside the river basin itself. So basically, and then we have the Drainage and Irrigation Department or other state water management authority developing the IRBM plan covering both, because the plan is actually looking into the bigger picture. And finally, we recommend the state government to look into developing the IWRM plan, linking the ILBM plan as well as other IRBM plan. These are the key milestones in terms of IWRM development in Malaysia. As you can see here, the box in red here is actually the ILBM initiative that I mentioned earlier. I also like to highlight in terms of the National Water Resource Policy, ILBM also has been embedded as one of the mechanisms to be used in managing water resources. And now we have a National Integrated Water Resource Management Plan has also been launched in 2016. These National IWM Plan is actually provide strategies and roadmap developed by the Academy of Sciences Malaysia. And ILBM plan is also one of the important component in this document. In fact, this big document roadmap is now being actually included as a major reference in the preparation of the 12 Nation Plan by the Ministry of, previously Ministry of Economic Affairs, but basically by the Economic Planning Unit. So the idea is actually to promote sustainable water resource management for all. With that, I end up my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zati, for your excellent presentation. Now I would like to welcome our 7th presenter, who is Ms. Prava Pandey, the Program Officer, who presents on behalf of Mr. Raju Sapkota, the Undersecretary, Ministry of Forest and Environment, and also Executive Director of the National Lake Conservation Development Committee, NLCDC, Government of Nepal. Ms. Pandey will present about overview of Integrated Lake Basin Management, ILBM, approach for sustainability of lakes and wetlands in Nepal. Ms. Pandey, the floor is yours. For now, I think we move to our next presenter, who is Professor Daniel Olago, who is also the Vice Chair of the ILEC Scientific Committee and Professor, University of Nairobi. Professor Olago will present about the status of lake basin management in Kenya and the prospects for East Africa collaboration on ILBM. Professor Olago, can you please turn on your microphone? And the floor is yours. Please proceed.
Thank you very much, Victor, for the introduction. Let me just share my screen. Okay, so thanks for the introduction, and I'll be bringing you over to Africa to see a little bit of what we are doing here and to learn a little bit about our lakes. So I'll be talking on the status of lake basin management within Kenya, and then the prospect for East Africa collaboration in terms of ILBM. Now, when you come to Africa, you see that Africa has quite a number of lakes, but the concentration of many of the natural lakes is in the eastern part of Africa here. And in West Africa, we do have some small natural lakes, as well as some fairly large reservoirs. So while we have a huge number of lakes at 677, some of them, many of them are really quite small and are not easily apparent here. But the largest lakes are in the Eastern and Southern Africa region, and collectively we term them as the African Great Lakes. And these lakes actually are quite old. Some of them, the ones in the western arm of the rift, range from around 5 million to 12 million years old, while those in the eastern arm of the rift here are roughly from 3 million years old to the present day. And Lake Victoria, which you are all very well familiar with, which straddles 3 countries here in equatorial Africa, with a surface area of 67,000 square kilometers, basically is one of the youngest at 500 million years old. Now, one of the things about the lakes in this area is that they demonstrate a lot of interdecadal variability. So we can see, for example, the top left panel here is showing the changes in the water level of Lake Turkana, which is in an arid part of northwestern Kenya. And we see that there's clearly some interdecadal scale cycle, as well as cycles probably on a longer time scale of centennial range. We can also see other lakes that we have here, which are within the rift system, Bogoria and Naivasha, and these two are actually Ramsar sites. In fact, out of all the Ramsar sites that we have in Kenya, which are 6, 5 of them are lakes, and all those 5 lakes are within the rift system. So again, we see that temporally large-scale variability in the levels of the lakes. Now, if I bring you over to this one on my right-hand side at the top, this is the changes in lake level of Lake Victoria. And we see a lot of variability here as well, some of it which is interannual variability. But of interest is this particular peak here that happened soon after 1960, and which was related to a very heavy rainfall event that was largely driven by changes in the sea surface temperatures, particularly in the Indian Ocean. And the lake then stabilized at that high level for a fairly long period of time. But we also see, because of the construction of the Owen Falls Dam at its outlet, that now the lake level variation is also partly controlled by how the Owen Falls Dam power production works. And of interest to us also is that right now, in the present day, we are seeing unprecedented rises in the levels of the Kenya Rift Lakes, which started in 2010. And they have had serious socioeconomic and also ecological impacts. And part of it is actually related to heavy rainfall, but there are other factors which need to be also considered, because they are also attributing to the rises in the lakes. And these include increased surface runoff, as well as increased sedimentation because of erosion. And there are also hypotheses that there could be some tectonic effect on this, but these are still being studied, but we see these very big fluctuations in the lake levels. We do come across many different threats for the lakes in our region, which are similar to the ones that have been highlighted in Asia. And they basically can be divided into environmental, ecological, things that affect the ecosystem, goods and services, economy of an area, the social aspects, as well as governance. And here I give you an example of Lake Nakuru, which is a famous lake because of the flamingos that it has in fairly large numbers. And as I mentioned, it is a Ramsar site. It's also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And there's a town, a fairly large town, which is situated to the northern part of it here. So we can see in the photographs here For example, there's a river here that also carries a lot of effluent from industries into the lake, posing danger to the animals and birds that actually use it. We have seen, of course, the big lake fluctuations, and because it is fairly flat, when a small change in lake level can expose, if it is a reduction, can expose a very large area of land, and the converse is also the same. So we also do see the issues of birds dying because the waters are highly polluted. And just as another example, we can see here from Lake Victoria, there's a lot of sand harvesting around the lake edges there, which of course introduce a lot of sediments into the lake. We see algal blooms because of the amount of nutrients which are coming in from the entire catchment. This is a lake that has a catchment that is almost 200 and, including the lake surface area, is about 250,000 square kilometers. And if you look at this photo on the bottom, we see even from satellite images, huge sediment plumes carrying in nutrients from the catchment into the lake. And this is the Kavirondo or Nyanza Gulf of the lake system. Some of the problems which we are experiencing include water hyacinth, which is of course blocking navigation in the lake itself, but also has some other concomitant socioeconomic impacts, as well as impacts on the aquatic ecology of the lake. So some of the balance between different species and the food webs within the lake are affected where the water hyacinth has been proliferating. And also we see some destructive or activities within the lake catchment, deforestation and other aspects. But we also see over-dependence on wetland vegetation for, making furniture and for other materials for roofing, and in general to increase their livelihoods. But the lake is also well known for the production of fish, and the fisheries industry is a multi-million-dollar industry. And it really needs to be preserved by controlling the environmental pollution, which has been mentioned as being one of the biggest problems that we see within our lakes. So in terms of the implementing ILBM in Kenya, we started off with the Lake Nakuru, which I showed you pictures of the challenges that it is experiencing, and many different agencies, including the government, the county governments and civil society organizations, the private sector, corporations and companies, the academia, the universities, as well as schools, and also more the umbrella private sector associations within either the county jurisdiction or within the national jurisdictions have all come together to address the issues which are pertaining to the lake. And we have periodically been producing lake briefs, updates for those selected lakes to help to guide interventions that can have positive impacts on improvement of the status of the lakes and their catchments. We have been working, and in fact have now shared a national draft strategy, and this ILBM strategy has actually been incorporated into the National Water Policy, which is the overarching legal framework for the management of water resources within the county. And as was mentioned by some of the other presenters, we also understand that there's this cross-cutting issues when you're talking about lakes. So the Ministry of Environment and Forestry is also launching programs that are out to improve the environments within and the basins within which these lakes occur, and also the wetlands associated with some of the lakes. So in terms of reaching out to the larger East Africa region and the continental scale, we do have the kind of policy, the governance framework is really in place to be able to accelerate the ILBM into these other regions. For example, we have various regional bodies, the main one, of course, being the Africa Union. And then we have the sub-regional bodies like the East Africa Community and ECAS and IGAD. All these are basically sub-regional bodies covering different parts of the Africa region. And we also have the Africa Development Bank. And all of these have been instrumental in providing a guiding framework for which we can manage properly national as well as transboundary resources. So, for example, we have the 2025 Africa Water Vision of the African Ministerial Council on Water, which has a focus on sustainable use and management of water resources and is actually carrying out a number of different programs in this regard. The Africa Water Facility basically mobilizes resources for financing of water resource development activities within the region, and of course, tied into those development funding activities, proper strategic environmental assessments or EIAs. And there's also the Science, Technology and Innovation Strategy for Africa document, which notes that water is really essential and has a cross-cutting contribution across all its 6 priority areas. And so this recognition of the cross-cutting nature of water is extremely important. One of the presenters earlier also showed us that we have, of course, many different integrated water resource management approaches and strategies. And there is need also then to improve intersectoral coordination to ensure that what is done in one sector and what is done in another sector do not work against each other, but cumulatively they work together to improve the environment of these lake basins. So national water and also environment ministries incorporate into policy reforms which are actually taking place across the Africa region ever since 2000 until the present day. These are incorporated into policy reform and also strategy documents which are relevant at different levels, whether it is within the national level or subnational level or regional level or continental level. And at the continental level, we have the Africa Union Agenda 2063, which also outlines the importance of water and its consideration in sustainable development. And we also all subscribe to the Sustainable Development Goals and are looking and integrate these within national and regional priorities with different emphasis depending on the different regions where we are. So in conclusions, we note that our lakes within Eastern Africa in particular and Africa in general, they are highly sensitive to natural changes, and they're also highly sensitive to human activities. And we have also seen with some examples that human activities in the catchments and on the lakes themselves adversely impact the ecosystem health and resource values, and which then also in turn decrease the quality of life of the people who are dependent on these resources. And we also note that the problems which we see in each of these basins are multifaceted. The drivers may be similar, but they are very important in terms of which drivers are the most important ones that are driving these lakes towards, pollution and to unsustainable management. These need to be filtered out and really focused upon in order to reverse the direction that the lakes are currently taking, which is basically becoming worse in terms of quality and giving us less in terms of ecosystem goods and services. We also note that lakes are largely ignored in integrated river basin or water resource management frameworks. There's always more of an emphasis, for example, on the rivers without considering that lakes, and which had been earlier said, are basically integrators of all these environmental pollutants that they need to be preserved because it is very difficult to clean them up once they are contaminated. So ILBM offers us opportunities for cross-sectoral and also transboundary cooperation. But in addition to that, and very importantly, citizen participation in the management of our lakes and our basins. And we note, of course, that long-term transgenerational views are extremely important because of the characteristics of the lakes, which have been also outlined by Professor Rust. But as we move into the future, we are also facing other uncertainties which are related to climate change. For example, the intensification of the extremes of droughts and floods could have really serious impacts on the aquatic ecosystems themselves and on the availability of water for other users through time. So with those, I would like to end my presentation there, and I thank you all for taking your time to listen to this presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Olago, for your excellent presentation. We would like to go back to our seventh presenter, Ms. Pandey of Nepal, who has come back online. Ms. Pandey, you may start from the beginning.
Thank you very much. And my apology for interrupting due to the electricity connection. Distinguished participants, it's me, Prabha Pandey, from National Lake Conservation Development Committee under the Ministry of Forest and Environment. On behalf of my organization, today I'm going to present my presentation entitled Overview of Integrated Lake Basin Management ILBM Approach for Sustainability of Lakes and Wetlands in Nepal. These are the outlines of my presentation, which covers the lakes and wetlands of Nepal, its importance, threats, Ramsar sites of Nepal, policy implemented in Nepal, institutions that are responsible for the lake conservation ILBM approach, lesson learned from the ILBM implementation, challenges of ILBM implementation, and way forward. Lakes and wetlands of Nepal are very important because Nepal is the country of highlands, and including the Mount Everest, the highest peak of the world, and it holds the 5,358 lakes to the paddy fields, which holds the 3% of available water of Nepal. It is important because it is the home for many Ramsar sites, and it possesses the many lakes worth of global significance, and it has transboundary nature, and it has significant value in the religious and cultural. Most of the lakes and wetlands of Nepal are very important in Nepal because it is the major source of economy which uplifts the country, ranging from the food to the medicines, different medicines. Moreover, 22 indigenous people that are dependent on the lakes and wetlands of Nepal, and this figure shows that the 13% of the different communities and that is dependent on the lake community from the lowlands to the highlands of Nepal. Still, lakes and wetlands of Nepal are underestimated because of the complexity in the process of changing nature. These are the flora and fauna that contains in the lakes and wetlands of Nepal. These are the major values of biological resources, which depends on the lakes and wetlands of Nepal. These are the cultural values for different communities and for different ethnic groups, for their different religion and culture of the country. These are the threats. The lakes and wetlands of Nepal are decreasing day by day, and due to major threats of Nepal are due to the anthropogenic factors, natural process, as well as this changing environment. For the importance of lakes and wetlands of Nepal to the global importance, Nepal has declared 10 Ramsar sites from 1987 to 2016. Since wetlands and lakes are cross-cutting issues, and Nepal has adopted many policies and acts for the addressing lakes and wetland conservation issues. And we have adopted Wetland Policy 2012, Forest Policy 2018, Climate Change Policy 2019, and these are several acts for the lakes and wetland conservation in Nepal. Moreover, Nepal has adopted and trying to achieve the sustainable goals, which has contribute lakes and wetland in achieving its goals in some ways, but are specifically it is linked with goal 6, 13, 14, and 15. These are some multilateral environmental agreements that have been signed by Nepal, from Ramsar Convention to the Sustainable Goals, HE targets, CBD, UNFCCC, I2, UNESCO, IUCN, Kyoto Protocol, SAWIN for the lake and wetland conservation in Nepal. These are some responsible institutions of Nepal. According to the new federal construction of Nepal, these are the responsible organization in Nepal for the lake and wetland conservation. In federal level, we have Ministry of Forest and Environment, Department of Forest and Soil Conservation, National Lake Conservation Development Committee, Department of Forest and Department of Plants and Wildlife Conservation. In the provincial level, there is Provincial Lake Authority, Provincial Ministry of Industry, Forest and Tourism, and in the local level, there is District Coordination Committee, Municipality, Rural Municipality, Lake Conservation Users Groups. And for all these organizations, there are various partner organizations to support them, such as UNDP, ISHIMO, WWF, UNEP, UNICEF, and different CBOs and NGOs for the lake and wetland conservation of the country. If we are talking about the ILBM approach in Nepal, the conservation of lakes and wetlands started from the establishment of Lake and Conservation Development Committee. Admiring the facts of lakes and wetlands conservation in Nepal, Government of Nepal has established National Lake Conservation Development Committee on 2007, and after the establishment of this organization, the adaptation of ILBM approach has been started with the coordination of ILEC. Basically, NLCDC has been working on the policy level for the policy review, consolidated policy from the different sectors level, and it has different programs such as National Lake Conservation Strategy and preparing lake inventory, and some NLCDC has started has been working for the action to implement the lake conservation and is wise conservation of its resources. The organization has established National Lake Inventory based on the review of secondary sources, and it has spotted 5,358 lakes in Nepal, which is basically prepared from the 700 topographic map survey, and it has also prepared the field-based lake inventory below 3,000 meters above sea level with the coordination of Department of Forest from the 13 districts and the lakes of 62 districts that has been done by NLCDC oneself. NLCDC has prepared lake management plans basically for Gardahawa Lake, which has been situated in Rupandehi district, and the lake cluster of Pokhara Valley for the effective implementation of ILBM approach in Nepal. And NLCDC has prepared lake strategy plan in 2012, but due to the unstable government, we are still in the process of its implementation. And with the initiation and deep scientific research of Pokhara Valley, the 9 lakes of Pokhara Valley as declared or Pokhara Valley Lake Cluster as a new Ramsar site in 2016 from the initiation of NLCDC. To broaden the knowledge about the lake conservation, NLCDC has organized National Lake Conference in 2018 that commits to implement and spread the implementation of ILBM in all over the country, which has been participated by more than 250 participants from the more than 6 countries in Nepal. With the support from the government of Nepal, NLCDC has continuously contributing some financial support to the Ramsar management site to maintain its integrity, so in such as Rara Lake, Sefoksundo Lake, Lake of Pokhara Valley, and Ghodagodi Lake to maintain and establish its integrity in the various level. Moreover, to strengthen the local governance in the lake integrity, NLCDC has supported to the local lake community users group for Rara Lake, Rajarani Lake, Jagdishpur, Gaidahaba Lake, Ghodagodi Lake, Sefoksundo Lake, including my Pokhari, which is the one of the Ramsar site of Nepal. Moreover, annually it is supporting to more than 45 lakes of 30 to 40 districts of the country to implement the ILBM at the community level, and regularly it has been conducting lake conservation awareness program to the community for the strengthening the ILBM approach in Nepal. The organization has organizing different exchange, lake exchange conservation learning exposure to strengthen the capacity building, knowledge sharing, and conducting the trainings to the local users group. And the NLCDC is continuously participating in the ILBM workshop organized by the ILEC. These are some lessons learned during the ILBM implementation that has been done by the NLCDC. ILBM integration needs more time to deliver its impact. Nepal's learning of participatory conservation from forest and water resource are effective to contribute the ILBM in Nepal. Integration of ILBM with integrated water resource management is very important and is a very useful and necessary task. ILBM demonstration at higher scale is required to its better implementation, and conduction of water conservation awareness campaigns is needed to implement ILBM approach in Nepal. These are some challenges facing during the ILBM implementation of Nepal due to the lack of lake status above 4,000 meter and glacial lakes. There are difficulties to implement the ILBM in Nepal. Due to the very few and weak technical capacity and human resources, the implementation of ILBM is affected. Due to the financial constraint, the ILBM implementation has been impacted, and these wetland issues are cross-cutting issues, and due to the sectoral overlapping, the ILBM implementation has not been effectively implemented in Nepal. And due to the lack of awareness among the people living in the lake region and emphasizing the importance of conserving the environment. This has been challenged to overcome the ILBM implementation in Nepal. Due to the low awareness and facing the problem to build the capacity among the locals as well as the international level, it is very difficult to implement the ILBM very effectively in Nepal. And another most important challenges that has been faced by Nepal is due to the lack of demarcation in the lakes and wetlands of Nepal. Due to the free space of lakes and wetlands and its basin area, there is difficult to implement the effective ILBM implementation in the country. To overcome these challenges, we have planning some steps to move forward and further effective implementation of ILBM approach in Nepal. We are planning to prepare collective lake inventory of Nepal, and we are prioritizing our work to revise National Lake Strategy Plan, which has been prepared in 2012 to the government of, we have requested government of Nepal, Ministry of Forest and Environment to revise and for its approval. For the coordination with different national and international organizations and seeking fund, we are trying to establish Wetland Academy in Nepal to demonstrate the ILBM approach in Nepal. And we are trying and we are continuously coordinating with the provincial, local, and concerned organization for the effective ILBM implementation master plan of Gaidahawa Lake and the lake cluster of Pokhara Valley to prepare and make the guideline for the effective ILBM management plan for the country. And we are continuously supporting, conducting, networking, coordinating, and participating in the international workshop that for the knowledge gain and sharing our experiences in the global forum for the effective ILBM implementation in the country. And from this enforcement of the integrated lake basin management master plans of the country, we are planning to establish the ILBM demonstration sites for the gaining more knowledge about the ILBM approach in Nepal. So this much is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pandey, for that very excellent presentation. Now I would like to welcome our last but not least presenter, Professor Salif Diop, who is also the Vice Chair, ILEC Scientific Committee and Professor of University of Cheikh Anta Diop in Senegal. Professor Diop will present about challenges for ILBM, Integrated Lake Basin Management implementation in West Africa. Professor Diop, the floor is yours.
Yeah, let me share the, Are you seeing my slides? No.
Not yet. Kindly share your screen.
Yeah, I don't let me. I did. Yeah, sharing it. Share. Okay.
Please choose your PowerPoint.
Yeah, coming. Okay, are you with me?
Yes.
All right. Because I have 10 minutes, I don't think that I
I would really go straight to the point, particularly considering that, you know, two of the main report where we did exercise this ILBM implementation plan in Dakar, in Abidjan. Two of those reports are available actually in French and in English, and even within ILEC. I'll really try to pinpoint three areas. One is challenges, you know, we are all speaking on. The second point would be just to give you an idea of lake project basins which has been funded by the bank and which maybe could give some ideas how and where we could either cooperate with those funded projects already, like Chad in particular, and also in Senegal by the African Development Bank, and then try to see maybe how we could develop those in the future. And the last point I would just discuss with you is now that we have two dates which are being evolving within the World Water Forum 9, which mean March 2021 or, excuse me, November 2021 or March 2022, which is two of the dates people are discussing today to see how those will be considered for the World Water Forum 9 because of this obvious issue of the COVID. The issue which has been, again, I'm just reminding my colleagues that all those areas, you know, which has been also discussed with West Africa are actually affecting the whole planet. The climate change and extreme events, population increase, city expansion, sustainable provision of drinking waters, ecosystem degradation, pollution, etc. Those are the areas which in details, I'm repeating it, the reports for West Africa in Dakar and Abidjan are available. And it has been, you know, discussed widely for 3 days, and I'm not going to insist on that. But I think it's important that we consider that these are evolving conditions which will continuously require research and scientific intervention, particularly when we have to consider the societal realities and the activities if we want to overcome this issue of sustainable management geared to solution. Again, all those intervention and discussions was to develop knowledge, to initiate research action, and to, you know, in the area of preservation and development of integrated lake basin. How, you know, particularly for assessing lake basin situation, as well as their dynamics, conducting analysis of policies with regard to water resource management and compliance with law, developing area of cooperation between experts, etc., etc. The focus presently, where really people are putting their effort, is on the issue of water security and sanitation, and particularly the issue of drinking water supply to large coastal cities and to main cities. And by the way, the water security and sanitation constitute the main theme of the next Dakar 2021. It would be now 2021 or 2022 for the World Water Forum 9, but depending what dates would be retained. And then the issue of the food self-sufficiency, you know, for villages, cities, and improving living condition of population. And within all those several, how to adopt ecosystems and ILBM approach in the context of improving environmental status and governance of lake, as East Africa today is doing it. Those have been discussed largely again in Dakar and in Abidjan. But we have to retain as a whole the importance of the integrated lake basin management system that again take into consideration, the interface between the pillars all presenters has insisted upon. We are now translating this English version into a French version, trying to consider again the possibility as a potential when we'll have to disseminate it through West Africa, where most of the people are speaking in French. This report is mostly finished, but again, the ILBM is important to consider. While reducing, all those the stresses and lake basin ecosystem, the restoration and maintenance of lakes ecosystem services, and then provide sustainable services in lake system, in equilibrium, in the environment. That's all those issues we did present and hear from all colleagues. But in 10 minutes, I'm not going to go into those details, has been largely discussed again during prior meeting. But where I want to put my little bit focus, because still I have only 10 minutes, is when we consider the lakes, we have the impression that there are no or not a lot of intervention. I've been investigating these days and trying to see what about the interests of the bank. The African Development Bank is the main bank towards all those programs related to lake issues, particularly the Lake Chad, the Niger Basin Authority, where you have series of lakes, and then you have small riparian lakes, all over West Africa. I'll show it to you very quickly in a map. Indeed, there are there are series of projects which has been actually funded. Let's take this one, for example. The project which is focusing on sustainable development of the Lake Chad, and a second one which mostly insists on the rehabilitation and strengthening of the resilience of the socio-ecological systems of Lake Chad. And even some other theories, because there are many others, which relate to safeguarding and, and managing the hydrology, the biology, and cultural resources of Lake Chad, which means those lake basins program or project funded by the bank are there, thanks to the riparian countries, to basins authorities, to some institution. And I think it's maybe time to look at those critically and to see what the outcome are and how, within this exercise of ILBM, we could link with them and see in terms of delivery, exchange of information, how to reinforce maybe what they are doing because they have obtained funds and others. And particularly, it is important when we consider the range of issues they are dealing with: early warning systems for drought, floods, restoration. These are at the heart of what we are trying to address within the ILBM as well. In Senegal, where you have one major institution, ILEC, which is dealing exclusively with lake and other water systems, there are also some project which has been funded by the bank itself. One of them, which I have retrieved, is this one, to restore the ecological and economic function of Lac de Guiers. Lac de Guiers is one of the main lakes, which actually is supposed to provide, most of the drinking water to the major cities and to the riparian cities. This one is really aiming to restore the optimal condition of this lake, which is degrading as well. The area what I was mentioning is particularly in this one, in the area of Senegal, but you have also many in the central part, in Chad, like Chad, Niger, and also in the river basins, authorities of the Niger River in particular. Let me, those are some elements I just want to provide. But as far as now the World Water Forum is concerned, today, from the information we have recently received from the Secretariat, we have two options of date. It's November 2021 or March 2022, with a focus on water security and a strong focus on the ecosystem-based policies and governance. And we have identified one window opportunity where ILBM could be proposed, particularly the project action 1D, considering the SDGs linkages, SDG 6.6, everybody has talked about, and 15 for the biodiversity, and 13, of course, for climate. And that's where we have actually put those elements and trying to really highlight the interlinkages issue among the water system and ecosystem services. Those are the elements we have so far included as a draft. We have to see how far it will evolve. Integrated approach to managing inland freshwater resources and their basins and their ecosystem services, and including the interlinkages and interaction between Atlantic-Lotic water system, typically comprising freshwater drainage basins, and then lake, rivers, and wetlands and their basins, and then what comprehensive and integrated water system platform, could we look at when we consider the ILBM. In the partners, we have included OLAC, which is one of the main office dealing with lakes here in Senegal, but also ILEC, of course, UNEP, the Ministry of Environment and different university and the Observatory of the Sahara of the Sahel. And this is one of the proposals we have on the table. We have sent it to the Secretariat, and we hope when it will be captured, that will be the opportunity and the momentum for all what we are right now discussing, even within this section, to be developed further, and then to make sure that the world or those who will be coming to participate to this will be more highlighted in terms of ILBM issue. That's all to try to keep, and I hope that I have not been. I've been trying to keep my 10 minutes, but I'm not sure that I've kept them. Thank you very much, MC Victor.
Thank you very much, Dr. Diop, for your wonderful presentation. Now that all presentations are finished, we'll move on to the discussion session. And let me remind all presenters to kindly unmute, turn on your camera, and switch to gallery view. I would like to hand over to Dr. Nakamura.
Thank you very much, Victor. We have come finally to the discussion session, yet we have very limited time. We do not want to keep you too long. So we like to focus on a few important things that relates to the presentations that we have had. And I would like to ask those who can contribute to discussion somehow, you can raise your hand or any other way that we will know this discussion in the limited time can be pursued very productively. The first thing is that I think you all agree that we came to a point where mainstreaming lakes and Atlantic water issue is becoming a very serious stage where many of us, the governments, have been able to pursue basically all the necessary conditions in way of development. But apart from policy framework, guidelines, if not perfect, maybe we have some shape or manner, the ILBM platform. However, when it comes to actually seeing to it that ILBM produces the actual improvement of the status of sustainable resource use of lakes and lentic waters, there are a lot of additional efforts needed, and particularly when it comes to the relationship with the lakes and Atlantic waters with the traditional water sector. Traditional water sector, water resources development, hydropower, flood control, flood drought control, and so on. And also the very strong inclination to make sure that the very scarce water resources be most efficiently used for drinking water supplies and so on. Tendency is still not to the point where sufficient condition, meaning that the status of situation involving lakes and Atlantic water actually making satisfactory achievements. So we are at a point where at the global level, we have to have this issue be very much noticed and be committed by the global water fora and global environmental fora. But to be able to do that, we would like to see how we are doing with national mainstreaming. And we heard a few very interesting presentations that may serve very well for this purpose. Is a national mainstreaming, how you have been doing and how some of the promising outputs achieved, and how that can be accelerated. I would like to ask Director Laksmi Dewanti of Indonesia that you have had in the last 10 years or so developed this priority lakes concept. You had the World Lake Conference, and this mainstreaming is a very much a common understanding of the water sector, water resources sector, environmental sector, and probably local government sector. We would like to know still what do you have any pending mainstreaming challenges, be it human resources development or financial mobilization or technology? Where are we in these national mainstreaming efforts in Indonesia? Can we hear from you?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Thank you for the questions. So you are asking me about the pending challenging, yeah?
Yes.
Yes, indeed that well, for the implementation of our integrated programs on sustainable lake management, we are still facing challenges. First and the most are because we have quite a spread of lakes throughout Indonesia, and as an archipelagic countries, we have so diverse ecosystems from one lake to another lakes. So the challenging is that even though we have an integrated program at the national level, we still need to diverse the strategy implementations. So in one way, we see that the integrated national policy will be dismantling or disintegrated into a specific lake. Maybe that's not the purpose. The purpose is to make a tailored from one lake to another lake. But if we miss the communication and coordination, then we may dismantling the integrated policy at the national. So the most challenging is to strengthen coordination and communications among the lake managers, but yet maintain the specifically and locally and uniqueness of each individual lakes. That's a management challenging. Of course, other challenging is came from the most drivers, which is the population itself. Maybe it's not only in Indonesian case. In many cases, we have cities in front, what you call it, surrounding the lakes. And here in Indonesia, as we decentralize the authority through the district levels, to the city and district level, there's a lake that surrounding with many different administrative authorities. So again, the pressure from the population, the pressure from the different focus and different priorities of the different districts government or cities government will accumulate as another pressures to the lake itself. So I think there are, I just would like to share you two of many challenges that we are having. Okay. So we would like to learn from other countries how to deal with that, because I believe this is a very common challenging throughout lake management in the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You have a very unique challenge of the lakes scattered around archipelago or system. And even to meet and discuss, it's quite a challenge. We had a very interesting World Lake Conference in 2016, and hopefully that was very helpful in that respect. But now let me ask, let's see, Ms. Manju Pandey of India, Joint Secretary. We heard from you a very comprehensive national strategic plan for wetland management. And as I understand, like Ganga projects, there's a lot of resource mobilization taking place. And I think you are working very closely with the Water Ministry to implement these strategic plan for wetland conservation. But you also seem to me that you touched a little this urban development, urban lakes, quite a few, and this urban development impetus producing tremendous impacts on the urban lentic environment, urban lakes, wetlands, and so on. And it is a very challenging matter, particularly in relation to how the technology can be mobilized, how financing should be shared, and so on. But one thing that we would like to learn from you is how are you doing with the human resources development on wetland conservation at the national level? And how is it relevant to this urban lakes challenges that you seem to be facing in years to come, particularly because of the tremendous urban development, human population increase? Joint Secretary, do you have a contribution to make in this respect, particularly the human resources development?
Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay. I think what you asked me, if I got it correctly, was what are we doing for the urban lakes and wetlands of the country which have more problem of, you know, encroachment, and they would be filthy because of the urbanization and all. As I told you in my presentation, we have state wetland authorities. So now each state is taking it up differently. For example, I can give you an example of the Delhi State Wetland Authority, which has kind of formed a core group for wetlands and lakes rejuvenation under the Environment Minister, which keeps on monitoring it. What they have done is they have revived a lot of water bodies which had been, you know, which were filthy and polluted. And they have they've started work, they've started constructed wetlands projects, and a lot of water bodies have been revived in Delhi. So if it can happen in Delhi, it can happen in any other, you know, urban city also. So that kind of, as I told you, because of the new ministry which has come up in the last 2 years, you know, more and more people are getting sensitized now about the importance of water bodies, especially during the flooding, etc., which is happening continuously, you know, in the last few years. So most of the state governments have taken up this work on priority, and they have started reviving and rejuvenating the water bodies which were there. This is as far as the urban water bodies is concerned. And then you were also talking about sharing of resources. So as I said, we have started making integrated management plans for all the wetlands and lakes. Once we have the integrated management plan, it has a lot of components. It could have a component of afforestation, it could have a component of desilting, it could have, you know, different depending on the problem which is the thing is facing. So now the resources are shared between different ministries. If I have made an integrated management plan for my lake, I ask for funding. Let's say for afforestation, I will ask for funding from the Environment Ministry, from the Forest Ministry. As far as, you know, banking or something, the embankment or something is concerned, I'll ask it from the Urban Development Ministry. Similarly, you know, we have the Rural Employment Program, etc. So there are a lot of funds available in different ministries, and at the district level, all those funds are available where the lake is there. So there, you know, the integrated management plan is actually it's a thick plan where resources can be taken from different ministries. So this we have started there. As far as the HR is concerned, we have, you know, we have our SEPA partners with us, and we have a lot of, you know, training modules we keep on having for the wetland managers. And in these days of the pandemic, also we've been having a lot of webinars, and you know, we have taken help of our knowledge partners. We have, looking at the size of the country, you know, in each region, we have a knowledge partner, which kind of handholds the wetland managers there. We normally talk to the knowledge partners, and they further handhold the wetland managers. So that's how we are running our capacity building program in the past 2-3 years.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. And I think the progress you're making in India is probably serve as a very good model of how the interministerial coordination, joint work, sharing responsibilities can take place. Now, I would like to invite Malaysia, Zati, to give us a little bit on how you were able to have this national strategic document in which IWRM, IRBM, and ILBM seems to me to have been sort of well infused, which is a rare case. What was the step to take that brought to you to have produced a document, one single document in 2 volumes that attests to this importance of infusing these 3 conceptual framework? That's one. Secondly, you have provided us with some of the demonstration projects, but what are some of the constraints you're facing in terms of accelerating these cases to a more systematic and a broad spectrum of lake challenges, both in terms of supplying water and also for environmental conservation? Zati?
Thank you, Dr. Nakamura, for the questions. For the first questions, basically what we did in Malaysia when we try to develop the strategic plan is actually to involve various stakeholders. So we have various representatives from the ministry as well as from the agencies, also from various experts and local authorities to be part of the consultation process. And from this consultation process, we actually then come up with a document and then to summarize all the inputs. And these documents were actually consulted again with the various stakeholders before it is tabled to higher authorities or higher institutions, basically the National Water Resource Councils, which actually represented by the chief ministers, and it's actually led by the prime, at that time was the deputy prime minister, and now the National Water Resource Councils has been changed to National Water Councils, which is chaired by the prime minister. So actually the process is long, but we did from the bottom. We get the involvement from the various stakeholders and communicating, identifying the issues and the challenges, and trying to get the right measures and strategies that can be implemented by different agencies as well as institutions. And then we actually bring these measures into the meetings among the ministries levels, basically chaired by the Ministry of Environment, or Ministry of Environment and Water now. Previously it's Natural Resources and Environment. And then before we finally table it to the very higher management authorities. So basically it is a long process. For example, the strategic plan, when we developed, it was completed in 2009, and we managed to table to the National Water Resource Councils in 2012. And similarly, the National Integrated Water Resource Management, these are actually being carried out by the Academy of Science Malaysia. They have various experts from the departments as well as from the universities contributing the inputs, and I think the process is similar here. Whatever results will eventually table to the National Water Resource Council, or now National Water Councils in Malaysia. Concerning your question number 2, actually when we did our experience when we developed the integrated lake basin management plan, we realized there's a lot of issues, especially in terms of communications, in terms of because the sectoral management by agencies looking into their own mandates. So basically we use similar approach when we try to develop this ILBM plan. Firstly, we consult them in various stakeholder consultations, even before we start our in-depth risk evaluation and assessment. Basically, the idea was to get the buy-in from the respective authorities, managers, and operators, and then we can finally so we can get some consensus from them in terms of prioritizing the issues and the measures or the strategies to be implemented. I hope that answers the
Thank you.
questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I have one or two additional questions before I open this floor. We have a surrogate representative from the Philippines because our speaker from the Philippines had to leave. We have Lenny. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes. You know, the Lenny. I was going to ask if there is any prospect of the lakes in the Philippines other than Laguna Lake, which you have been working on with us a long time. This Laguna Lake, LLDA, actually is the Laguna Lake Development Authority. Basically, it started out as a resource development authority, but harmonizing this development impetus and conservation needs must have been very, very challenging. But in your view, how successful you have been so far, and how do you think this Laguna Lake sort of model, to so to speak, can be sort of downscaled and distributed to other parts of the Philippine lake situations?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. It's very timely that the authority has already celebrated its 50th year. So there were a lot of lessons learned along the way. But what was really challenging is there are questions on why is it that the authority has both a developmental and regulatory function. And there were attempts to just say, LLDA, what really is your mandate? Is it developmental or is it regulatory? But it is in the law. This kind of mandate was specifically stated in the law. So even if it's very challenging, we try to make a balance in that mandate. But initially, there was so much focus on the regulatory function. And it's just in the last 10 years that the developmental function is being given more emphasis. But what is important here is it's not really a matter of having really a specific authority created by law, because as mentioned in the presentation of DNR, there are different management models. It could be by law, it could be through a certain declaration like the National Integrated Protected Area System. Some are even initiated by the local government units that just by a mere memorandum of agreement, a management scheme can be developed and implemented. But this is where we see the entry of the ILBM approach. It could be a different management model, but if we are anchored in a certain framework, then it's just a matter of localizing the approach and looking really on the real issues, not just the generic issues. Now, the question on how do we downscale? We have a Clean Water Act. It was, I think, 2004. And I think this is also one of the very good laws because it mandates that lake basin should be declared as a water quality management area. So Laguna Lake is the first water quality management area that was declared. It was in the law. And since the basin is so big with so many stakeholders, with around 14 million people and all those challenges, what the LLDA board did was to declare the 24 sub-watershed as a sub-water quality management area. So work on an integrated scale, but some I don't know if it's right to call it at least integration to integrate, because the different sub-watershed now can function as like a mini LLDA, following the same rules, the same set of policies, but still the apex authority is the LLDA. So in terms of what for example LLDA has done that the other lakes have benefited, actually is we have a pioneering effort on the environmental user fee system, which is now being adopted nationally by the DNR. And this is also a source of getting the stakeholders involved. It's a market-based instrument. And from the revenue that we get, because LLDA can collect fees, can have fines and penalties, is a certain portion of this fee that we collect for resource use is being now shared with the local communities for their environmental projects. So there are many things that can be shared, but of course there are also some challenges that we have learned a lot from.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We are getting pretty short of time, already accessing the originally scheduled time. But I think it's very important to ask this question to Mr. Tsui of Ministry of Environment, Japan. You introduced to us this lake water quality conservation law and lake water quality conservation plans of individual lakes. And we still have many challenges in Japan in terms of improving the overall broader sense of water quality, including ecosystem functions, improvement, and so on. We have Lake Biwa, and last year, a couple of years ago, we had Kasumigaura Lake having a World Lake Conference, and with your support and with broad participation of experts from across the region, including many Japanese. Now, my question is, I think we have other lakes under designated lakes in this law having a variety of situations. And some of them, I think, can serve very well for the kind of challenges facing in Southeast Asia, Asia, or even Africa. I think if we have sort of a framework, the new framework for Japan, together with the Asian countries, to take a lead in sharing not only the Lake Biwa or Kasumigaura experience, a broad Japanese lake basin management experience, perhaps through this ILBM platform process. I think it will be very, very helpful for us, as well as for these possible beneficiaries of this attempt. Do you have any thoughts on Japan taking some sort of leadership in this area, serving not only Lake Biwa and Kasumigaura, but broad Japanese experience that come under your administration? This lake water quality conservation law now is really the lake governance improvement purposes. So I think it would be very, very useful if we hear from you that what might be a possibility in the future of Japan and some of these Asian countries with success stories to take a lead in the global platform.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nakamura. So yes, so now so far, so Japanese government, Ministry of Environment, doing the support and collaboration between, for example, Ministry of Environment and Forestry, Indonesia, regarding the lake water management. Yes, of course. So yeah, there is a limitation of the human resource and financial resource in Japan. But anyway, so yeah, of course. So we are very positive to introducing our experiences and the story of the regarding the integrated lake management. Of course, we have a challenge much more lake management, more integrated. But anyway, so yes, of course we Ministry of Environment will do the support of cooperation with Asian and African country for the integrated lake management. Yes, of course, with collaborating other Japanese other related ministries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Like your last words, the other ministries, I think the success story that Ministry of Environment had is really trans-ministerial collaboration that attests to the requirements of the lake water quality conservation. Thank you very much. Now I would like to give the floor to Director Liu. Are you still with us from UNEP? Okay. If we have somebody from UNEP, maybe, yes, we have Dr. Patrick May. Maybe you can guide us as to what is the foreseeable step for mainstreaming lakes and Atlantic waters in the global agenda. How this sort of a webinar output should be carried forward. Can you give us some hints as to how we can address this from the UNEP point of view?
Let me thank you very much, Professor Nakamura, and also ladies and gentlemen on this webinar. I'm very glad to hear all that has been said. If I may summarize it, I think we have touched on the ILBM, linking it with IWRM and linking it with IRBM. And all I see is there's need for a very strong collaboration at the country to country level. Even a South-South cooperation can be formed in this forum, as I can see. There's a lot of good experience from Asia and a lot of good experience from Africa, which can be joined together to form a very, I would say, strong collaboration at international level. So I see a collaboration of international, regional, and also at national level, the local also, and the stakeholders, which also involves the private sector. So I think this should be the thing that should be encouraged, and I believe that UNEP would be very glad to facilitate or to encourage this kind of collaboration, even within our forums that we have. And also I see opportunities at other forums that deal with water. And lastly, I would like to say that we could also bring in the funding or regional funding bodies, because I see, for example, in Africa, they talked about Africa Development Bank. Restoration of lakes is not cheap, but it requires that we have the financial means to bring back lakes to what they are supposed to be, or also to maintain the sustainability. I think these are a few things that I would like to say about this very exciting exchange. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now, I'd like to give just 1 minute or so just to give us your impression how this webinar has been like and what direction we should collectively pursue. Dr. Rust, having heard all these wonderful presentations and being chair of the scientific committee, can you give us a very short remarks of where we are and how are we going to proceed from here? I would like to ask Dr. Olago and Dr. Diop as well. And also in Nepal, Prava Pandi, if you have some thoughts on this, very short remarks due to short time. I'm sorry for mismanagement of time, but I think it's so important that we stick around a little bit more. Dr. Rust, you have to unmute. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so I only get 1 minute, huh? No problem. Listen, I do have several observations very quickly. I do want to congratulate the ILEC Secretariat because putting on this kind of a webinar, it's got to be an electronic logistic nightmare. I think you did quite well. Several things that struck me as we were talking. So I was trying to see some common elements. If you don't mind, I put my glasses on because I wrote down some stuff here. One, I found out that a lot of people are already using some elements of IWRM, even if they're not aware of it, which is also very good. And I also wanted to point out that sometimes there are many common problems I found out. Eutrophication and biodiversity seem to be very major themes that were being repeated here. And it made me think that science in some ways is a little easier because it follows natural laws, chemistry, physics, biology. When you get into management, you get human interventions. Then you get things you have to worry about, like you know, competing agencies, competing water uses and stuff, and it gets quite messy. That's why looking at governance is so important, as you've all talked about in various ways in your own components. And fragmentation of authority seems to be virtually all the presentations indicated. You have authority for water issues through so many agencies. It's very difficult. And Dr. Zadi mentioned that, Dr. Alago, and I thought that was quite true, and it always has been my experience as well. I don't know why it seems to be so tough for us to work this way, you know, to defragment, if you will. And may I also mention, I'm glad we're going to have all these things available to us later, but I also want to mention something that we didn't talk about because it's not really part of this exactly, but we're developing a lake network in Latin America. We have Asia Pacific, we have Africa, which you've done some really good work so far in ILBM, but we have done not very much with Latin America, and we're developing one really for one of the primary purposes that's in the lake mainstreaming document, which is to share experiences, cross-fertilization, lessons learned, perhaps some training courses and joint projects. And so that we will have at some point a Latin American experience to be able to share with everybody else. And the fact, what I've heard here is going to help us shorten our learning curve in regard to setting up this, Latin American lake network. I'm sorry, I'm kind of bouncing all over the place here because these are just impressions I've had. And I think everybody is proceeding along as well as to be expected, although we can, of course, improve. And you mentioned, I think you mentioned the World Lake Conference 18, which was supposed to be held in Guanajuato in about 2 weeks, as a matter of fact, which was rescheduled for November of next year. And I want everyone hopefully to keep that in their mind because it hasn't disappeared, it's just been postponed. And I think given time, I probably can't say much more other than hope that all of you will continue to help us with this mainstream effort within the context of your own arenas. And with that, let me just say, stay safe and healthy, and look forward to us getting together again at some point in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, Dr. Olago, do you have some thoughts on the way forward?
Chair, just two things I want to say very quickly. One is that I think it is very important to enhance the networks amongst national ministries of environment and water. I think we have seen within the countries there's been very good cross-ministerial collaborations, and this is a learning that can be extended to our region, for example. And I think the second is that, again, intersectoral development, the way in which we do our planning at national level, for example, maybe is now outdated. We need to have intersectoral planning because, for example, if we take one of our lakes like Lake Nakuru, we have its biggest source of money is from tourism, but it is the water sector which is more interested in developing hydropower dams for power generation or for water supplies or for irrigation. So to them, that lake is not important from a water perspective. So, you know, with that kind of intersectoral, the tourism, wildlife and tourism ministry cannot really touch the water resource unless the Ministry of Water says you can't play around with the water resource. But if you look at the budgets for the Ministry of Water, it is going to be very low. And for the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife, it is even maybe not going to feature because it is not their mandate. So I think that is an also important thing to look at. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Olago. Now, Pandi, Ms. Pandi, you have mentioned in your presentation that ILBM takes a time to produce impacts, which is very true. I think that we are talking about the platform development, but actual sort of this status improvement of getting this platform process going is a gradual, incremental, long-term process. But nonetheless, under very difficult circumstances in Nepal, you have done a very excellent job of convening international conference. And now you are trying to develop individual plans for many of these community-based lake-basin systems. So I would like to ask you that how this webinar helped out and how you feel this way forward for Nepal after this webinar.
Thank you, Dr. Nakamura. I want to say one thing is that NICDC is only the one institution, government institution, that works for ILBM approach in Nepal from its own resources. So we are seeking co-funding from the different international organizations to implement the effective implementation of ILBM in Nepal. And another thing is that we are always back with ILEC because we are always coordinating with ILEC, and we are always back with ILEC to globalize our all water agendas in the global arena. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, last contributor to this concluding part of the discussion, Professor Salif, can you provide us some insights as to what is next for ILEC and UNEP, as well as your mother country, Senegal? I would like to very much hear about what you felt was the accomplishment and how we can move forward.
Thank you very much, Professor Nakamura. Just to mention that and highlight during these last months, although calendar has shifted a bit, we have learned a lot because of the number of stakeholders which are intervening in the area of water, be it on wetlands, be it on the lake issues, of course, or rivers, be it on the interface. Many of them still and everybody is coming with his common entry point. And during the discussions, some of the brief discussions we have through Zoom again, because we have a number of Zoom meetings, one area people are mostly insisting in terms of governance is the interlinkages aspect. Interlinkages aspect and integrated aspect of those elements, be it wetlands, be it lakes, be it even up to the area, and all those, if we consider those, with their status, because they are at risk today in terms of management, this indicate how important it's in, if we really want to make sure that we will be mainstreaming, the lake issue within these global water agendas, because they are all, dealing with the all water issues. This is something which is strike again, but we have mentioned it during many exercises, the TWAP exercise, all those things. But I think it's again important to revisit this issue of interlinkages, interactions, which we see again in the ILBM, IWRM, IRBM, etc. But how to make sure that during the next Windows opportunity, we'll push those elements forward to make sure that lakes will be more visible in this agenda of discussion. That's what I want to frame and to
Thank you very much, all the speakers, for this discussion. We took much longer than originally planned, but nonetheless was very, very helpful. ILEC will summarize and move forward with UNEP as to the mainstreaming of this issue on an international level, but you being responsible for the national mainstreaming, I think this acceleration and accomplishment and development of a very strong and stronger platform for mainstreaming at the national level would be very much in line with our effort on the international level. Now, I'd like to speak to all of the audience. We still have a large number of all the audience listening to us, amazingly. We appreciate you to provide us questions. We do the best we can with the speakers to answer your questions. But at the same time, if you have some suggestions, recommendations, or even commitment on your part, the audience, we would like to hear so that we have much stronger backing on the issues that we have to pursue, that is mainstreaming of lakes in the global water agenda. Well, again, I apologize for the belated pursuit of this webinar. Nonetheless, but this is the first of this kind that ILEC attempted, and I think we accomplished a great deal through this attempt. Thank you very much, speakers. I'll return this mic to Victor. I think Victor will have to tell us what to do, all the speakers.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Nakamura. Thank you very much, all our presenters and all the participants. For the participants, again, let me remind you that all the questions that we've received quite a number of questions in the chat, I can see, will be answered on our website at a later date. And you can send the questions even after this. And next, we would like to take a photo. Dr. Nakamura, you want to like that? And kindly remove your mask. Our speakers, kindly remove your mask so we can take a photo. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Victor. I think it's very important to have proof of what we have been able to do today. And again, all the speakers, wonderful contribution, and we want to keep record of this accomplishment with your smiling face. I will say 1, 2, 3 for you to look at the screen, to smile and respond to my call. Let me do that twice. The first is, you ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, Victor, I hope this photo comes clear and clear, but let me try one more time. This time, let's wave to the screen, let me, I was reminded I should be looking at the camera rather than my PC. Sorry about that. Okay, I will say 1, 2, 3, and I think with a big smile and wave, it'll be very useful. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Thank you very much for the day. We look forward to working together with you. Thanks for your time, and we meet again. Victor.
Thank you. Thank you very much again, all our participants, our presenters. And with this, we come to the conclusion of today's webinar. Thank you very much. The webinar is closed. Kindly leave the webinar by choosing leave. Thank you very much. And see you in our next webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you very much.
Everyone. Thank you.
Thank you and congratulations to everyone.
Okay.
Good work, Victor.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.